I remember the taste of copper in the back of my throat. When the lights flickered for the first time, that soft, stuttering pulse of failing power that always preceded another evaluation cycle. The barracks smelled of sterilizer and cold metal, a scent that clung to the back of my palate like a warning. When you are grown in a tank, your first memories are not of parents or play, but of machinery humming around you like mechanical lungs. Even now, decades later, that same hum echoes somewhere in my skull, as if the Empire etched it into the marrow before casting me aside. I was awake before the others that morning, not because I wanted to be, but because defective bodies find rest only in fragments. My joints locked if I stayed still too long, something the trainers called a structural inefficiency. The truth was simpler. I was not built right. Even in the artificial womb, the growth accelerators misfired. Not enough nutrients in cycle 12. A glitch in the genomic scaffold. Whatever the excuse, it made no difference. You are either perfect or you are not, and those who are not perfect are not meant to remain long. The evaluation siren cracked through the dorm like a blade, its pitch the same as every other morning. Tight, cold, uncaring. The others rose in a practiced wave, identical in movement, identical in purpose. I rose slower, feeling the stiffness run down my spine like a frozen needle. The clone to my left glanced at me with that empty expectation unique to us. Not judging, not empathizing, simply measuring the delay. We were brothers only in the genetic sense. In every other way, we were contestants in a silent race for survival. I remember adjusting my boots, fingers trembling as they often did when the temperature was too low. I did not look up when Instructor Vesh entered, because looking up was unnecessary. You could feel his presence through the shift in air pressure. He walked with authority so rigid, it felt like gravity bent around him. The door sealed behind him with a hiss thick enough to taste. Assessment. Run 47, he announced. His voice always sounded fatigued, as if we were an obligation he endured rather than a purpose he embraced. All failures will be removed from rotation. Removed. There was no illusion about what that word meant. Removed meant recycled. Some rejected clones were stripped for parts organic slurry processed into nutrient gels, or fed to embryonic batches that still had promise. I had nightmares about that gel, its sickly pink sheen floating at the edge of my vision whenever I closed my eyes for too long. We filed out in lines of 4. I fell slightly behind, and of course the system noticed. Every door sensor, every hallway checkpoint, every ceiling-mounted ocular was designed to record deviations. The Empire did not waste time watching us. Our machines watched us better. The training bay was colder than usual, the kind of cold that made the artificial lights buzz. Rows of targets stood in disciplined silence, their humanoid silhouettes staring back as if accusing us of something we had not yet done. The floor smelled faintly of burnt plastic, healing from the scorch marks of yesterday's drills. My blaster felt heavier that morning. Maybe it was my hands shaking again. Maybe it was just the knowledge that this was Run 47. Most rejects did not reach 47. We spread into positions. Instructor Vesh observed from the overlook, his silhouette framed by the reinforced glass. Machines clicked online around us. A countdown began at our feet, shifting through numbers with a soft blue glow. When it hit 0, the room erupted in sound. Targets popped up with mechanical violence. Blaster bolts cracked through the air like electric whips. The clones to my right hit their marks with metronomic precision. A perfect rhythm drilled into them since gestation. My rhythm was always half a beat off. I adjusted, compensated, exhaled, fired, repeated. Then the tremor came. The one that always betrayed me. A bolt flew wide, striking the wall instead of the target. The sensors screamed their disapproval in a harsh red flash. A mistake. One mistake? Red. The room did not care that I corrected immediately. Systems donna, reward recovery. They measure deviation. Another wave of targets. I fired until my arms felt detached from the rest of my body. At the end, sweat clung to my back in icy patches. The others looked calm, steady, identical. I looked tall-winded, unstable. Wrong. D. Instructor Vesh stepped onto the floor. His boots echoed in cold, precise intervals. He stopped in front of me, pupils narrow, expression unreadable. Unit, designation, Acta. 44. 9K. Sirrah, I answered, trying not to let the tremor in my voice show. He held his datapad. I knew what he saw. The misfire, the delay, the structural inefficiencies flagged long before training began. I step aside, he said. The clone to my right all. Perfect posture. Perfect everything. This was routine. Expected. Statistical. Dobbs Wayne. My stomach tightened as if wrapped in durasteel wire. I stepped aside. Two purge orderlies approached, their armor marked not with the crisp white of future stormtroopers, but with a muted gray. Gray meant sanitation. Disposal. Me. My legs locked. Not out of fear, out of biology. Another flaw. D. They took me by the arms. Firm, not cruel. Efficiency does not waste cruelty. I remember the hallway they dragged me into. Narrower than the rest, lit in a softer white, as if pretending to be gentle. The hum of the reactors deeper here, vibrating through the walls like a slow heartbeat. We passed other rejects, some weeping, some silent, some too broken to stand. One shoe. The disposal wing always smelled like coolant and antiseptic, a mixture that made my vision blur. There were no windows, no clocks, just a conveyor of flesh that did not meet expectations. The orderlies prepared the injection tray. A clear tube, a shimmer of metallic fluid, nanodissolvers, done. They broke down tissue fast enough to reduce a clone to nutrient slurry within 2 hours. I stared at the tray, and for the first time in my life, the hum in my skull did not feel like a machine on. It felt like a warning. Something old and primal pushed up through the conditioning. Maybe it was fear. Maybe instinct. Why, neighbor? Maybe just the final error in a long list of genetic defects. Whatever it was, it took hold of my muscles before the orderlies could. I ran. God's hard. Not fast, not well, but enough. They shouted. Boots echoed behind me. The alarm stuttered awake with a rising pitch that made the walls vibrate. I pushed through a maintenance door, the kind clones were in, supposed to see, and found myself plunged into a corridor filled with steam. Pipes hissing above me like serpents waking from sleep. The heat burned my face. The metal grated under my hands. The hum was louder here, closer, alive. I crawled. I slipped. I fell. But I kept moving. When I finally collapsed against a durasteel vent grate, lungs punching for air, I heard distant voices, muffled but urgent. They were searching, sweeping. But the system was not built for imperfection. It expected perfect clones, following perfect routes. It did not account for a defective body crawling into defective maintenance shafts. And so I disappeared into the walls. Not by skill, not by brilliance, by accident, by flaw, no, The Empire had no place for defective clones. So I became something worse. Well, a ghost in its machinery, unseen, uncounted, forgotten. That was how my horrifying life under the Empire truly began. Not with glory or defiance, but with a simple truth. I survived because I was not perfect enough to kill efficiently. In the crawl space, the air tasted metallic, thick with the dust of forgotten construction. Every breath scraped my throat. Pipes radiated uneven heat along my spine as I slid deeper, letting the narrow walls press against my shoulders until movement became an act of will instead of instinct. The hum was louder here, so close it felt as if the whole structure vibrated through my teeth. It was the same frequency that haunted every tank I'd grown in, the same rhythm that followed me across every evaluation. That droning pulse became my heartbeat, my guide, and for a moment my only companion. The light behind me dimmed as the grate slid back into place, closing the last visible connection to the world I had known. The world that had been ready to dissolve me into nutrient paste. I pushed forward until the noises of the pursuit softened into nothing but distant boots and garbled voices. The ducks bent sharply, and my shoulder jarred against a metal elbow joint, sending a jolt of pain down my arm. I kept going. A broken clone does not get the luxury of stopping. When I reached a junction box, the faint illumination of wire conduits washed my hands in a sickly green glow. It was not enough to see well, but enough to keep me from slamming my skull into another pipe. Every shift of my body echoed through the narrow space in dull, suffocating rumbles. My breath fogged in front of me where the coolant lines passed overhead, while the pipes beneath me radiated heat strong enough to welt my forearms. The temperature differences made my muscles twitch violently. I did not know where I was going. Clones did not study maintenance schematics. We were never meant to. Our training included weapons, tactics, discipline, not the underbelly of the facility. The ducts were for droids and engineers. Rejects were never meant to last long enough to crawl into them. Eventually, the ducts widened into a vertical shaft that dropped down into darkness. A maintenance ladder ran along its spine, its metal rungs warm under my hands. I climbed down until the humming grew softer. A vent opening yawned below me, and faint movement of air brushed my face. Carefully, I dislodged the grate and slid into the chamber beyond. I landed in a crouch on a grated platform overlooking endless machinery. Turbines turned in slow, ponderous rotations. The smell of burnt ozone hung in the air. This was deep within Kamino's cloning facility a forgotten sublayer where the infrastructure kept the entire complex breathing. I stayed low, listening, chest heaving. No alarms blared here. No voices shouted. Only that mechanical hum softer now, but still constant like a suppressed vibration buried behind the walls. I should have felt relief. I did not. Relief is a luxury you learn only when someone has shown it to you first. For clones, there is no template for safety. Below the platform, a row of sealed containers lined a narrow walkway. Each canister bore faded markings and frost along the seams. Nutrient cylinders, waste processors, recycling tanks, places where rejects like me were meant to be sent if the process had been allowed to finish. The realization shook something deep in my gut. Whoa, I was looking at the future. I'd escaped by minutes. As I crouched there, listening to the low churn of hidden turbines, footsteps approached along a corridor branching off the room. Heavy, methodical, not clone troopers. These footsteps had weight, the grounded confidence of someone who believed themselves essential. I pressed myself into the shadowed underside of the platform, body trembling with involuntary spasms. My breath stilled. My pulse synchronized with the steady machinery beneath the grating. A Kaminoan entered the chamber, tall and spectral in the dim lighting. Their elongated silhouette moved with serene precision. A datapad floated in their elegant hands, blue light reflecting off their bone-white skin. They inspected the systems, tapping notes with slow, deliberate gestures. I watched their eyes sweep the room. Large, placid, unreadable. They were not looking for me. They were ensuring the machinery remained perfect, consistent, balanced, dull. If they found me, I would be classified as contamination. After a long moment, the Kaminoan passed back into the corridor, their movement so silent it barely displaced the air. I stayed still long after they vanished. Eventually, the trembling in my legs calmed, and I rose. I needed to move, to disappear deeper into the facility before the purge teams recalibrated their search. I was not valuable enough to justify a large operation, but I was a loose thread. Threads get clipped. I followed a service tunnel that sloped downward until the air grew warmer, tinged with the sharp smell of polymer and the faint sting of cleaning solvent. The walls shifted from metal to smooth composites. Dim emergency strips glowed along the edges. I heard distant machinery, different from before, softer, cyclical. When I pushed through a maintenance hatch, I found myself staring into a large storage bay. Racks of unused armor lined the far wall, white plastic plates arranged in perfect rows. Not clone trooper armor, early Stormtrooper prototypes, still lacking final polish. Phase 0 enforcer suits, skeletal in design, their elongated visors resembling skulls. Some were entire suits. Others were discarded pieces, a chest plate missing a strap, a helmet with a cracked seal, boots with mismatched treads, errors from early manufacturing runs, rejects, imperfect, unworthy. Just like me, I approached one of the damaged helmets and ran a hand over its surface. The plastic was cold, smooth, lifeless, but the thought crept into my mind with quiet inevitability. The armor did not need to fit perfectly. It just needed to hide me. I scavenged from the damaged pieces, a chest plate with a warped edge, arm guards with uneven seals, a mismatched pair of boots. The helmet was the hardest. None fit my head properly. Too tight, too large. The Kaminoans had not designed this generation for clone proportions yet. In the end, I found a cracked prototype with enough give that I could force it over my skull, despite the pain. When I stood again, my reflection in a stack of polished metal crates looked like a malformed version of what the Empire wanted its soldiers to be. Jagged, unbalanced, but covered. The armor did not make me safer. It made me invisible. Stormtroopers were an yet the symbols of fear they would one day become. But they were being prepared, manufactured, conditioned, just as clones had been, just as I had been, but never fully. I heard something then, a sound that didn't belong to the machines. A low, distant drone reverberating through the floor. It rose and fell in a pattern that made the hair on my arms lift. Dropships. Now, the Empire was arriving to inspect the transition. New overseers. New doctrine. New demands. The smell of ozone thickened as energy fields cycled open near the docking platforms above. The storm was literal and metaphorical. I stood there in my mismatched defective armor and felt the tremor in my limbs return, not from fear this time, but from the cold realization settling into my bones. I had not escaped my fate. I'd walked straight into a new one, a life the Empire never intended to grant me. A life I would pay for in ways I did not yet understand. The hum of the machinery deepened around me, almost as if the entire facility exhaled in anticipation. The drone of the dropships rolled through the metal bones of the facility, a long resonant vibration that settled behind my ribs. It was not the clean mechanical hum I yawned, grown used to inside the walls. This was heavier, deeper, alive with purpose. Imperial vessels had a distinct presence, as if their very engines were built to remind everyone beneath them who commanded the sky. I adjusted the cracked helmet. The inside smelled faintly of adhesive and scorched plastic, and the seal grated against the ridge of my jaw. Every breath echoed back at me in a muffled chamber of recycled air. A poor fit, a poor disguise, but still a barrier between my skin and the Empire Aw's eyes. The storage bay doors hissed open, just enough to allow a stream of cold air to slip through. Outside, the lightning of Kamino flashed against the metal walkway, illuminating the edges of the facility in violent white bursts. Wind roared through the gap, bringing with it the smell of salt and storm. The atmosphere outside always felt too big compared to the tight, suffocating ducts I'd just crawled through. I stepped closer to the opening, boots clanging softly against the grated floor. Through the slit, I saw the first shadows of the arriving contingent. Dark figures disembarking. Officers in crisp gray, shadowy, technicians in black, and moving among them, the armored silhouettes of early Imperial troopers. Not clones, not yet stormtroopers, but the transitional breed between eras. Their armor was shinier, less utilitarian than ours, more symbolic than practical. The clones escorting them walked in unison, white armor gleaming under the flashes of lightning. They moved like we always had, without hesitation, without doubt. I watched them and felt a hollow pit open in my chest. Those were the perfect ones. The ones whose blood did not coagulate too slowly. Whose joints did not lock. Whose hands did not tremble under cold. They did not realize how privilege clung to their bones. How a minor shift in a growth cycle, a tiny mutation, the slightest developmental error could have turned them into me. Something the Empire discarded without ceremony. I watched one of them pause at the edge of the platform and scan the lower levels. A routine sweep, tight, his helmet tilted, visor gleaming. For a moment, I wondered if he could sense me. Clones were not force-sensitive, but we had instincts bred into us, sharpened by training and repetition. Something about his posture made my lungs seize. Then, he turned away. The officers moved inside. Their voices traveled through the chamber even before their bodies appeared. Sharp, clipped tones, command rhythms. The language of people who had never once doubted their right to stand on higher ground. I pulled back into the shadows and pressed myself flat against a stack of unused plating. The armor creaked under me. The helmet made the world feel narrower, every sound throttled and distant. My breathing fogged the inside of the visor. A pair of officers entered the storage bay. Their boots struck the floor with that same confident cadence, heard earlier. Behind them came a technician carrying a holopad. The officers moved between armor racks, inspecting the prototypes with detached interest. This batch will be ready for deployment within the next cycle, the technician said. Modifications requested by Lord Vaderos's division are already underway. Lord Vader, Tatui. The name hit me with a strange weight. I had heard it, whispered, in the barracks. A shadow in the halls of power. A figure whose presence alone could silence entire squads. To clones, he represented something beyond command structure. Something that made the trainers tighten their posture. Something that made even the Kaminoans lower their tones. I all want to see progress firsthand. One officer replied. Ahi, Emperor, expects total alignment between clone efficiency and the next generation of human recruits. No. My chest tightened inside the mismatched plates. Human recruits. Transition. Jiaowai. Phase out. Die. Replacement. The whispers Iyad heard over the years crystallized into something sharp. We were obsolete. Not due to combat performance, not due to cost, not even due to our defects, eh? The Empire simply wanted soldiers without the remnants of the Republic written into their DNA. Soldiers who did not share a face with the men who had once fought for Jedi generals. Stormtroopers would not be brothers. They would not be born of the same template. They would be a legion of anonymous citizens molded into identical tools. I pressed deeper into the shadows, feeling my own breath tighten. Two officers passed so close I could hear the faint rustle of their uniforms. They did not look down. They did not question the cracked, imperfect armor piece leaning against a wall. After all, everything in this room was imperfect, flawed. My Ichiru MC discarded. The officers left eventually, moving back toward the main corridor. Their conversation faded into the hum of the facility. I stood alone in the dark, hands trembling against the blackened metal crate behind me. My heartbeat synced again with the machine saw. A rhythm I no longer knew how to separate from myself. I did not have a plan. And I did not have a future. I was not supposed to exist anymore. But in that moment, a realization began to whisper through the cracks of my mind. If the Empire did not want clones like Mia, if they wanted human recruits to fill these suits, then the armor I wore, mismatched, imperfect, rejected, might allow me to slip through the cracks even further. Not as a clone, but as something more dangerous. A nameless soldier who did not belong to any roster, any batch, any directive. An unregistered entity moving inside a system that devoured anything unaccounted for. I needed to survive long enough to understand what the galaxy was becoming. Long enough to find a corner of it where defects were not sentenced to dissolution. But survival meant movement. Staying in this bay would lead to discovery, and discovery meant the dissolvers. I moved toward the maintenance corridor again, stepping quietly, feeling every vibration of the machinery beneath my boots. The cracked helmet distorted my peripheral vision, but also dulled the anxiety of being seen. The door slid open with a low hiss, revealing a dim hallway lit in faint red emergency glows. The hum resonated through the floor once more. That familiar frequency, the one that lived behind my eyes, guided me deeper. I did not know it then, but leaving that room marked the last moment I walked as a clone. From here on, every step carried me into a life the Empire would never have sanctioned. A life built not on loyalty or design, but on defiance born from imperfection. The hallway beyond the storage bay felt different from the rest of the facility. Narrower, dimmer, and colder, as though this part had been built first and never updated. Pipes rattled along the ceiling, carrying fluids that pulsed with the same rhythmic pressure as the facility's heartbeat. That hum followed me, as always, like a memory I could not outrun. My boots clicked in uneven intervals, the mismatched treads betraying every step. With each movement, the armor shifted awkwardly against my ribs. The plates were designed for bodies more symmetrical than mine, limbs more proportionate, postures more disciplined. I walked like a broken droid stitched together from spare parts. But the shadows did not care about symmetry. They cared about silence. I hugged the corridor wall, keeping to the red-lit arcs. Every now and then, a distant tremor shook dust from the ceiling. The dropships settling into their berths above. The Empire was never subtle when it arrived. It wanted the Foundations to know who pressed their weight upon them. Up ahead, the hallway split. One path sloped upward toward the administrative levels. The other plunged deeper, vanishing into darkness. The upward slope vibrated with the footsteps of officers and clones, moving in formation. Sharp orders echoed between its walls. Crisp, clipped tones that stabbed through the air like flechettes. The downward slope breathed differently. Warm drafts brushed past my armor, carrying chemical scents and recycled air. The hum grew louder there, deeper, more resonant. It was the direction of the machinery that kept Kamino's entire infrastructure living. Beneath the training floors, beneath the barracks, beneath the embryonic tanks, the true heart of the facility churned in those depths. My instincts, sharpened more by desperation than training, pulled me downward. If the Empire was consolidating above, then escape, or survival, lay below. The slope descended for longer than I expected. The floor grew slick with condensation. A bead of moisture dripped inside my helmet and slid down my cheek like cold sweat. I wiped it away with frustrated fingers, but the cracked visor smeared it instead. At the bottom of the descent, a sealed blast door loomed. Unlike the pristine ones above, this one bore scratches and gouges, as though it had resisted more than just pressure. I pressed my hand to the manual release. The panel responded with a tired chirp, then unlocked with a heavy sigh. Warm air exhaled into the hallway. I stepped through. This chamber was not meant for clones. The ceiling extended high into shadow, where cables hung like long coiled tendrils. Rows of glowing tanks lined the far wall. Not cloning tubes, but processing vats filled with swirling fluids that cast faint turquoise light. The smell of chemical heat permeated everything. Machines hissed, rotated, churned in unending cycles. Their movement was almost organic, as though part of the structure was alive. A droid clattered across a nearby platform, its spindly limbs carrying crates stamped with hazard sigils. It did not acknowledge me. Droids did not ask questions unless programming required them to. I stayed close to the wall and moved deeper. The hum here felt stronger, vibrating through the soles of my boots and into my bones. It was no longer just background noise. It felt like a pulse I was synchronized with. Then I saw something that stopped me mid-step. Along the right-hand wall, half hidden by shadows, stood a row of upright pods. Not tanks, not recycling units. Newer, cryogenic pods. 8 of them. 6 were occupied. Their surfaces were fogged, but not enough to conceal the silhouettes inside. Limbs curled in unnatural angles. Faces pressed against transparent plates. I approached cautiously, breath catching in my throat. The first occupant was a clone like Mia, but smaller, younger, stunted. Growth cycle halted mid-development. Die? The Kaminoans must have frozen the batch rather than dissolve it outright. Efficiency was a matter of timing, after all. The next pod held a clone with a twisted spine, torso bent so sharply it looked painful even in stasis. The third contained one whose eyes had never fully developed, pale orbs staring nowhere. Failures. Rejects. Brothers I had never known, suspended in the exact moment the system decided they were not worth waking. My fingers hovered over the cold glass. These were the ones I was meant to join. The hum reverberated through the chamber again. This time it felt mournful. Behind me, a door slid open. I spun instinctively, almost losing balance on the slick floor, and dropped behind a row of canisters. My armor clattered softly, each sound echoing into the vast space. I tightened my breath inside the helmet, forcing myself still. 2 technicians entered, their gray uniforms stark under the turquoise light. They walked toward the cryopods. Me? One of them tapped a readout. Lord Vaderal's inspection includes review of the accelerated batches. These will need to be cleared. Nah. I should jewel them for liquefaction. No? Us. We need the biogel for the hybrid series. What? My stomach twisted. Liquefaction. No. The same dissolving fate, Eod, narrowly escaped. These clones would be processed into nutrient slurry, their existence repurposed for something else. The technicians moved on, pacing toward another set of machines. One leaned over a console, muttering about power allocation. Sir. The other stepped away to check a row of gauges on the wall. For a brief moment, neither watched the cryopods. Something in me something irrational, something humane, surged forward before I could stop it. I pressed myself against the nearest pod, fingers digging into the cold glass, as if touch alone could awaken the frozen body inside. But clones cannot save clones. We were never taught how. The technicians finished their inspection and left through another door, their voices fading into the machinery. I stood alone again, shaking under the weight of a truth I had not fully accepted until that moment. I was not the only one the Empire had rejected. I was simply the one who ran soon enough. My eyes lingered on the youngest clone in the pod, limbs light, face peaceful, oblivious to his fate. I wanted to open the pods. I wanted to free them, but my hands wouldn't move. Because I knew what would happen if they woke. They would collapse, unable to stand. Their bodies incomplete. Why? Their minds unfinished. They would suffer for minutes before the machinery or the officers or the cold itself finished them. The Empire had already chosen for them. And here I was, standing in stolen armor, pretending at survival. The hum deepened, shaking dust from the overhead cables. I stepped away from the pods, feeling a numbness creep through my limbs. Not from cold, but from the understanding settling inside me. Defect or not, I was still alive, and that meant the Empire would eventually find me. Unless I became something it could not categorize. A ghost even the machinery could not trace. One. I turned toward the far exit, where the warm air flowed strongest. If the cryo-wing processed rejects, then somewhere ahead would be the systems that move bodies, materials, waste. Pathways the Empire ignored because droids handled them. Those pathways would be my escape. Shrew. I took one last look at the frozen silhouettes. My reflection warped across the glass surface. Forgive me, I whispered, though the words never left my helmet. Then I stepped deeper into the machinery's heartbeat, letting the hum swallow me whole. The corridor beyond the cryo-wing descended even further, the floor vibrating with the force of massive machinery churning beneath. The air thickened with steam and industrial heat, coating the inside of my cracked helmet with a thin layer of moisture that blurred my vision. I wiped the visor with the back of my gauntlet, but the smear only stretched, distorting the turquoise glow that pulsed through the pipes along the walls. The hum was louder here, deeper. It did not just vibrate through the metal. It crept into my chest, sensing with my heartbeat until I could not tell which rhythm belonged to me and which to the facility. I moved carefully, boots slipping on damp surfaces, armor scraping against exposed conduits that lined the passage like veins. Down here, the Empire did not bother with symmetry. The walls bowed unevenly. The pipes twisted in directions that made no architectural sense. The lighting flickered with a pulse that suggested the system had not been maintained for years. This was the forgotten digestive tract of the Kaminoan machine. Why? Where everything unfit for the pristine upper levels eventually drifted. It made sense I would end up here. The passage opened into a vast chamber so large the far wall dissolved into shadow. Conveyor systems ran across the room in tangled networks, metal belts coated with the residue of whatever had been transported down here for processing. Some carried empty canisters. Others bore sealed crates, marked with biological hazard signs. I recognized the symbol. Reject reclamation. Oh. Bodies. Flawed tissue. Batch remnants. New. Everything the Empire did not want. I shifted backward automatically, my stomach twisting. The cracked helmet amplified the sound of my breath until it echoed like a shallow gasp inside my ears. A processing droid glided by on repulsors, its manipulators dripping with sanitizing fluid. It scanned a crate, stamped it, and sent it down a secondary track that led to a sealed furnace chamber. The heat shimmered through the air, warping my vision. Even the heat here hummed. No, I followed the largest conveyor line, staying low, letting the crates provide cover. Every few meters, warning lights flashed orange, illuminating the chamber in pulses like a heartbeat. The machinery hissed and groaned around me, each cycle an exhale of metallic fatigue. At the far end of the room, a large maintenance lift rested against a wall panel. Its platform was stained from years of unregulated use. The lift's control panel flickered red, struggling to stay alive under the humidity. I pressed a gloved finger to the call button. The lift whined but responded, rising with a grinding protest. When the doors opened, a gust of cold air hit me in the face, sharp enough to make my lungs seize. The contrast to the heat of the processing room was startling. I stepped inside. The door shut behind me with a metallic thud, plunging me into dim darkness, lit only by faint emergency strips. For a moment I stood completely still, letting the hum envelop me. It was softer here, almost gentle, like a distant memory of the tanks where I had first opened my eyes. Even then the sound haunted me. Even then, I had known even without languasha, that the hum meant control. It meant confinement. It meant my life was not my own. The lift began to move. Upward or downward, could not tell. The chamber had no display. Only the machinery knew its destination. I'll well decide. After a long stretch of motion, the lift shuddered and halted. The door opened into another corridor, but this one felt different from every level I'd been in so far. It was not industrial. It was not administrative. It was not a cryo wing. The walls were smooth and pale, illuminated by soft white light. The floor was dry, clean, dry, almost sterile, and it was quiet, painfully quiet. No hum, no vibration, no machinery grinding in endless cycles. Just silence, thick enough to make breathing difficult. I stepped forward, boots echoing harshly in the stillness. My reflection rippled faintly along the corridor's polished wall saw. The jagged armor, the mismatched plates, the cracked helmet. I looked like a broken creature hiding inside a shell not meant for it. A sound drifted down the hallway. Not machinery. Not footsteps. A low, rhythmic beeping. Faint, measured, alive. I followed it. The corridor ended at a sealed door with a biometric scanner glowing in muted blue. Next to it, an access panel blinked red as though awaiting authorization. I hesitated, eyeing the scanner. My armor was enough to mask my identity visually, but biometrics were another matter. Still, this door did not belong in the lower levels. This door belonged somewhere important on. Somewhere the Empire stored things it did not want others to see. I raised my hand and pressed the manual override on the panel. The scanner chirped. "Me?" The door hissed. Then it opened, slowly, almost reluctantly. cold air rushed out, bringing with it a scent I knew immediately. The sharp tang of cryo-stabilization fluid, sterile and metallic. I stepped inside. The room was small, circular, diameter. Lights embedded in the ceiling cast everything in a pale clinical glow. In the center stood a single cryo cradle, not like the mass production pods upstairs, but something more intricate, more advanced. Tubes and cables ran from it, like the roots of a machine-grown tree. Inside the cradle lay a body, a clone, but not like me, not like the rejects. This one was perfect, fully grown. Why waiting soon? Wine shall. Muscular, dawdy. Symmetrical, die. Flawless, tunt. A template, a master copy. His chest rose in shallow breaths, preserved but alive. A living blueprint for a generation of soldiers. My breath fogged inside the helmet as I stared at him. I did not understand what I had found. Not fully, not yet. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This was not supposed to be here, and neither was I. The hum returned faint at first, then rising through the floor panels. Not the machinery. Hummer. Something deeper, more deliberate. A presence moving through the structure of the facility, like a shadow. Footsteps followed. Heavy. No, auntie. Measured. I recognized them from rumors, whispered by trainers, from the way officers stiffened at the sound. Vader, Dao Su. They were coming here, and I was trapped in the one room I should never have seen. The footsteps were slow, heavy, and impossibly deliberate, each one landing with the weight of a closing blast door. They traveled through the corridor outside the cryo chamber in a rhythm too controlled to belong to a clone, too purposeful to belong to a technician. The air grew colder with each step, as if the atmosphere itself recoiled. The hum intensified, the mechanical hum of Kamino's internal organs, but that deeper resonance I had only heard muttered about in barracks legends. Trainers never spoke his name above a whisper. Officers stiffened when it drifted through a conversation. Even the Kaminoans showed a rare flicker of caution when the rumors reached their long, expressionless faces. Lord Vader. I had never seen him. No clone at my level had. He existed like an immutable law of physics, something acknowledged but never directly encountered. A force that shaped the whole structure of the Empire, while remaining unseen, unapproachable, and unquestionably lethal. And he was walking toward the room I had stumbled into by accident. My legs reacted before my mind did, stepping backward, deeper into the shadow beside the cryo cradle. My armor scraped the wall with a noise like a knife dragged along stone. I froze, breath locking inside my helmet, sweat running cold down my spine. The footsteps stopped outside. Silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that crushes the air, that makes each breath feel stolen. Then the door's locking mechanism clicked. A slow, resonant click that vibrated all the way up the metal frame. The door slid open. Fog from the cryosystems drifted outward, dispersing around a tall obsidian figure standing in the doorway. Light from the ceiling glinted off the black armor, polished and flawless. The helmet, iconic, even to a defective clone, who should never have learned such things, absorbed the room's glow like a void. Then the sound came. The breathing. Deep. Down. Mechanical. Sterile. A drawn inhale that seemed to lift the air itself, followed by an exhale that sounded like a verdict. Each breath felt heavier than the room. 2 Stormtrooper prototypes followed behind him, their armor sleeker than mine, their gait disciplined. They took positions by the door, silent, awaiting command. They did not glance at me. They did not scan the corners. They did not need to. If Vader wanted something found, nothing hidden would stay hidden. I pressed myself into the angle between the cryo cradle and a diagnostic console, lowering my head so the cracked helmet visor dimmed the reflections. I felt small. Broken. I knew one die. Erased. Vader stepped into the room. I do set it trout. The cryo chamber seemed to contract around his presence. Even the lights dimmed slightly, as though trying to avoid shining too brightly on him. His boots struck the metal floor in slow, crushing impacts that shook the fluid-filled tubes running from the cradle. He approached the lone clone inside. The perfect one. Time 2. The master copy. Now. The template. For a moment he simply stood there, towering, the mechanical cadence of his breath filling every corner of the chamber. Then he lifted a gloved hand and touched the Cradle's display panel. The pod lights brightened, illuminating the Clono's flawless features. I expected Vader to speak, but he did not. He simply observed as if evaluating a tool, as if measuring its worth, as if deciding whether this template deserved to exist. I felt my heart clawing its way up my throat. Biden. The stormtrooper on his right spoke. Aoti, transition to human recruits begins next cycle, my lord. Kamino's remaining assets will be repurposed. Vader's breath deepened. This one, he finally said, voice a deep metallic growl that rattled the walls. All will remain. His strain retains potential. The words echoed in my helmet. Potential, and a word I had never heard applied to a clone like me. He continued, tone ice cold. The rest of this facility's imperfect stock will be purged. My entire body went numb. Purged. Every reject. Every incomplete batch. Every mistake. Every deviation. How? The cryopods I had seen upstairs saw. The stunted ones, the blind one, the malformed they were not just scheduled for liquefaction. They were scheduled for extermination. And I was standing in the middle of the command room where that order was being decided. Vader turned slightly, examining the surrounding equipment. His helmet passed over the shadows, where I hid. For the briefest instant, the dark visor reflected my shape, distorted in the cracked plastic. My lungs stopped. Then, he looked away. Somehow, impossibly, my broken armor had blended into the clutter of prototype equipment. Or perhaps Vader simply did not consider the possibility that a defective clone reject would wander into the one room on Kamino, where discovery meant instant death. He stepped back from the cradle. Prepare transport all, he commanded to the troopers. The Emperor wants this specimen transferred to the Coruscant vaults immediately. The troopers obeyed without hesitation, adjusting the settings, sealing compartments, initiating protocols I did not recognize. Then Vader turned and exited the chamber. His heavy breathing receded down the corridor like a fading storm. The door sealed shut behind him with a hollow thud. I remained crouched in the shadows long after they left, feeling the cold metal against my fingertips, listening for any sign of return. Only the faint beeping of the cryo cradle marked the passage of time. I shouted. The hum was absent. The silence pressed down. Only then, when I could finally inhale without trembling, did the magnitude of what I had witnessed settle inside me. The Empire was done with us. Done with clones. Done with imperfections. The new era would not tolerate anything that deviated from its design. And somewhere, deep inside that understanding came a realization, sharper than fear. I was alive because the Empire had not planned for me. Not a soldier, not a citizen, not a failure to be processed. Something else, something untracked, unseen. A ghost born not from design, but from defect. I rose from the shadows with shaking legs, staring at the perfect clone suspended in the cryo cradle. He would survive because he fit the mold. But I would survive because I did not. When I finally stepped out of the shadowed corner, the room felt colder than before. The air seemed thinner, like the atmosphere itself was hesitant to exist in the wake of Vadra's presence. My legs trembled beneath the mismatched armor, each step sending a faint metallic clatter across the smooth floor. I approached the cryo cradle, drawn to it as if the template inside could somehow explain what the Empire valued, what it demanded. He looked peaceful, serene. No, as if the galaxy had already accepted him, even before he opened his eyes. A perfect soldier waiting to be awakened. Everything I was not. I reached toward the clear panel without thinking, my gloved hand brushing the cold surface. Frost flaked off in a small patch, where my fingers lingered. Behind the glass, the Clonas's chest rose and fell in slow, controlled breaths. He did not know he was chosen. He did not know he was meant to be transported to Coruscant, preserved as a trophy of perfect design. He did not know the other saw. His malformed, stunted brother somewhere hours away from liquidation. It hit me then, with a hollow ache. I was not just a reject. I was an accident that slipped through the machinery. You, a ghost of a generation being erased. Why? And ghosts don't get memorials. A soft vibration rolled through the floor. The machinery was shifting patterns again. Maintenance beams locking into place. Reinforced platforms extending. The facility was preparing for mass sterilization of the lower sectors. The Purge Vader mentioned was not theoretical. It was starting. Now, I backed away from the cradle, pulse hammering. The cracked helmet amplified every breath into raspy static inside my ears. The walls seemed to close around me, pushing me toward the exit like the facility itself wanted me gone. When I stepped into the corridor again, the silence had been replaced with a distant klaxon on a low, oscillating alarm, meant for internal personnel only. It was not the blaring emergency siren used for breaches or fires. It was more subtle, more clinical, a system alert, a sanitation directive. They were clearing the defective levels. If I did not move now, I would be a smear of nutrient gel before the next cycle. I sprinted down the corridor, boots clanging, armor pieces shifting painfully with every stride. The red emergency lights began to pulse in long intervals, casting waves of color over the smooth walls. Pipes overhead hissed, as pressure built inside them on sanitizing agents, priming for release. The Empire was washing its hands. I reached an intersection, just as a blast door ahead began to descend. The door was thick, reinforced, meant to isolate contamination zones. I lunged, sliding beneath it, the edge scraping the back of my armor. Sparks danced across my visor. The air on this side was warmer, humid, heavy, tinged with chemical fumes. Droids moved about the corridor, attaching purge canisters to wall brackets, their optical sensors glowing yellow. They did not acknowledge me. To them, anything wearing white armor was authorized personnel. Another fortunate mistake. A cluster of troopers marched past at the far end of the hala. Phase 1 clones, but with the newer black shoulder trims. They carried rifles set to stun. A containment team. They did not look my way. They marched toward the lower sectors, presumably to ensure no rejects escaped the purge. The thought of those cryopods being drained made something twist inside me. A tight pull behind the ribs. I turned toward the maintenance lift I had taken earlier. It was already returning, descending through the central shaft. Its motion vibrated through the wall, the same hum, resonating like a desperate heartbeat. I did not wait for it. Instead, I moved into a service corridor on the right, barely tall enough for me to duck through. Cables snaked along the walls like tendons, pulsing faintly with energy. The floor was uneven, patched over with plates that clattered under my steps. The air tasted like rust. At the end of the corridor was a hatch, marked with warning sigils. Under normal circumstances, a clone would never touch it. But these were not normal circumstances. The purge systems were activating. I could already hear the cycling vents opening in the distance, the hiss of gas being released. I pulled the lever. The hatch resisted for a moment, then opened with a groaning screech. A rush of hot air blasted out, carrying with it the smell of coolant and molten metal. Inside was a vertical maintenance shaft, narrower than the lift, but wide enough for a desperate man to climb. A ladder ran along one side, illuminated by flickering strips that bathed everything in an orange glow. Below me, the hum deepened. Above me, faint voices echoed, too distant to distinguish. The purge gas would reach this level within minutes. I grabbed the first rung. My hands slipped on the metal, slick with condensation. I nearly lost my grip, but the cracked gloves held. My muscles screamed as I climbed, each movement sending a jolt of pain through my defective joints. Halfway up the shaft, I felt the air change. The hiss below signaled the release of the sterilizing agent. A thick cloud of white vapor rolled into the space, creeping upward like a living fog. If it touched me, the armor wouldn't help. My lungs would dissolve from the inside. I forced my body upward faster, ignoring the fire in my legs. My breath came in sharp bursts inside the helmet, fogging the visor beyond use. I had to climb blind. Rung after rung. Down. Pain after pain. The hum rising with each meter. No. By the time I reached the top, my arms were shaking uncontrollably, and my vision blurred at the edges. I slammed my palm onto the emergency release, praying the mechanism still functioned. The hatch at the top burst open, flooding the shaft with clean, cold air. I hauled myself through and collapsed onto the metal floor of the chamber above, gasping, coughing, armor rattling with each breath. The hatch sealed behind me with a deafening thud. Silence. Then the hum returned. Always the hum. I rolled onto my back, letting my breath steady, staring up at the ceiling. Above me, through a mesh grate, I could hear the faint echo of marching boots. The Empire moved like a machina, orderly, relentless, indifferent. They did not know I was here. And if they did, they would not care. I was not a threat. I was not a soldier. I was not even a failure worth cataloging. I was something much worse for them. An anomaly. And anomalies survive not by fighting the system, but by slipping through the cracks it does not think to seal. I stood, legs trembling, and scanned the chamber. Ahead of me, a narrow walkway led toward what looked like a transport hub. A subtle vibration rattled the wall saw. It was not the hum this time. It was engines. Ships preparing for departure. If I could reach that platform, if I could slip onto a supply shuttle, I might escape Kamino entirely. Not as a clone. Not as a recruit. Not as anything the Empire recognized. But as something the galaxy had never intended to exist. A ghost, in white armor. A defective shadow with no number, no badge, no purpose, except survival. And survival would come with a cost I had not yet begun to understand. The walkway ahead stretched like a narrow bridge over a chasm of humming machinery, the kind of engineering space meant only for droids and technicians with clearance I never had. The metal grated under my mismatched boots, vibrations rolling up through the soles as though the entire structure were breathing beneath me. The hum was louder here, no longer a background presence, but a physical force that settled into my bones. Every step seemed to pulse with it. Mine. Every breath felt time to its rhythm. I had grown up in the sound, slept in it, failed under it, fled through it. Now it felt less like a machine, and more like the echo of something that had followed me since birth. Perhaps the hum was not Kamino's at all. Perhaps it was mine. The walkway led toward a heavy blast door, cracked open just wide enough to leak bright white light into the dimness. I approached slowly, staying close to the railing. Beneath me, buried deep within the facility's gut, I could see the faint glow of sterilization vapor flooding the lower levels. It billowed against the walls like a thick white tide, hungry and deliberate. If I had waited another minute in the shaft, I didn't let the thought settle. The blast door trembled as a gust of cool, clean air rushed through it. Voices echoed faintly on the other side. Human voices, not clone modulated. Officers, day. Recruits, I. Personnel aligned with the new order. As I reached the gap, I angled myself so the cracked helmet visor hid the trembling in my jaw. The armor felt heavier now, as if the plates themselves carried the weight of my survival. I slid through the crack. Bright light slammed into me, erasing the shadows I'd been hiding in. I stood in a large transport concourse, where elevated catwalks curved around a cavernous docking bay. Storm gray walls rose high above the platforms, reinforced with steel latticework. Overhead, massive floodlights illuminated rows of shuttles aligned for deployment. The air smelled cleaner here, ionized, metallic, tinged with the ozone from repulsor lift engines. It was the scent of departure, of transition, of movement. Troopers marched across the far platform in tight formation. Not clones. New. Human recruits, wearing early Stormtrooper prototypes. Their armor was freshly polished, their movements stiff and unnatural. They were still learning the rhythm clones instinctively possessed. I watched them, their helmets gleaming under the lights, their postures uncertain, their steps slightly uneven. Some turned their heads too much. Others gripped their rifles wrong. They were a completely different breed of soldier. For the first time, I realized something that should have been obvious. Humans would struggle to replace clones. The Empire wanted uniformity, without the biological precision to enforce it. That struggle would shape the years ahead. And I was here, witnessing the first shift of an era I had never meant to belong to. A supply shuttle hissed as its aft ramp lowered nearby, repulsors emitting a low whine. Crew members in gray uniforms busied themselves with cargo crates, shouting orders over the drone of engines. Droids trundled on magnetic treads, hauling equipment to and from the vessel. No one paid attention to the lone trooper-shaped figure emerging from a service corridor. That anonymity was my only advantage. I descended a staircase, each step echoing too loudly in my ears despite the noise of the bay. My joints ached. My fingers trembled. The cracked helmet restricted my vision enough to make the world seem like a tunnel I was stumbling through. When I reached the ground level, I blended into a group of armor-clad recruits boarding a nearby shuttle. They did not look at me. They did not speak. They were terrified of making mistakes in front of officers. That fear was a shield for me, hiding in plain sight beside soldiers, too anxious to observe their surroundings. As the ramp lifted behind us, sealing with a pneumatic thump, I took a seat near the rear, away from eyes and light. The interior smelled sterile, with a faint undertone of grease from maintenance droids. The hum of the engines vibrated through the floor, a deep resonance that crawled up my spine. One by one, the recruits buckled themselves into their harnesses. Some fumbled. Others tried to mimic those beside them. A few held their rifles too tightly, knuckles pale beneath the gloves. I didn't buckle in. The cracked armor plate pressed painfully against my ribs as I remained seated, but unrestrained. If anyone noticed, they did not mention it. The shuttle jerked as the engines engaged. Outside, the storm of Kamino howled on. Rain lashing the hull, lightning illuminating the clouds in violent bursts. The vessel shuddered as it lifted off, rising through the atmospheric turbulence toward the docking ring above. The recruits, breathing quickened. One of them muttered something under his breath. Manuel? Another closed his helmeted eyes. Clones were built to endure atmospheric transitions. Humans saw, adjusted. The shuttle punched through the last layer of storm, and the turbulence eased into a steady glide. The hum of the engines softened, wrapping around me like a cocoon of sound. Kamino shrank below, who saw a vast, storm-stricken world where I had been grown, tested, rejected, and nearly erased. The ocean stretched endlessly, its white caps gleaming faintly beneath the storm clouds. Lightning forked across the horizon. The facility I had escaped became nothing more than a dark speck swallowed by rain. I stared through the narrow visor slit of the cracked helmet and felt something I had no training to process. Grief. Not for myself, for the brothers still trapped in the cryopods, for those dissolved in vats, for all of us the Empire decided were not worth perfecting. The Shutleia's comm system crackled. Her prepare for transfer to orbit. Maintain formation. The recruits adjusted their posture immediately, stiffening as though the command had physical force behind it. I remained still. The hum deepened as the shuttle angled upward. Stars began to pierce the darkness ahead, the Geonosis reflection fading behind us. The engine surged, and gravity pressed me against the seat. Then, slowly, we broke free of the atmosphere. The storm disappeared beneath us. The stars opened above. The galaxy stretched out in cold, endless silence. And I understood something with painful clarity. For the first time in my life, I was no longer bound to the facility that created me. I was an unregistered clone on a ship leaving the planet that defined my existence. I had slipped through the cracks. But cracks do not stay open. The Empire seals everything eventually. And somewhere in the depths of space, its gaze would turn toward anyone who did not fit, including me. The stars outside the shuttle windows glittered like distant, indifferent witnesses. They watched silently as we ascended, their cold light seeping through the seams of my cracked visor. The recruits around me remained motionless, stiff in their seats, their breaths rasping inside their helmets like trapped insects. Their fear was almost audible, unspoken tension, rippling through the cabin. Fear was something clones learned differently. For us, fear was a variable to suppress, a misfire, an inefficiency. For them, it was instinct. Raw. One. Unfiltered. Human. Wall. Maybe that made them better suited for the Empire's future. Or maybe it made them easier to break. The hum of the engines began to settle into a steady low-frequency vibration. It reminded me of the tanks again, of the time before consciousness, before identity, before failure, when I was just another untested piece of genetic material swimming in nutrient gel with my batchmates, unknown of us, knowing which of us would emerge worth keeping. The hum had always been there. Even up here, beyond Kamino's storms, It persisted like a sound only I could hear. The shuttle banked slightly, aligning with a looming structure that grew larger in the viewport. An Imperial transport frigate locked in orbit above Kamino. Its hull bristled with antenna arrays that blinked red across the darkness. Floodlights cast long beams over the docking ports, illuminating the shuttle's approach. As we neared the frigate, the recruits straightened further, some visibly shaking. I could feel their anxiety, like a wave sloshing against my armor. They feared inspection. They feared scrutiny. They feared mistakes. I feared being discovered. Our shuttle locked onto magnetic rails and was pulled toward the docking bay with a force that rattled my teeth. The interior lights flickered once as the pressure equalized. Then the ramp lowered. A blast of cold, recycled air swept into the cabin. The kind of sterile chill only Imperial ships carried. Cold not because of temperature, but because of discipline. Because of authority. Because of expectation. The recruits rose awkwardly, forming a sloppy line that an instructor would have bellowed at if one had been present. But instead of an instructor, a squad of fully armored troopers waited at the base of the ramp. Sleeker armor than mine, glossy white, identical from head to toe. The future soldiers of the Empire. They moved with far more precision than the recruits, though not with the fluid instinct of clone battalions. These were early Stormtroopers, ex-Republic trainees, conscripts shaped by Imperial doctrine, officers, pets, early adopters. Not grown for war, but trained for obedience. The lead trooper stepped forward. Our recruits, disembark. T. Proceed to station. A. For identification and reassignment. Identification. My stomach twisted. My armor creaked. No. Identification meant biometric scans. Metadata. Diet. Genetic profiles. D. Everything clones possessed that humans did not. Everything that would expose me instantly. I stayed behind the group, keeping my head down, letting the recruits funnel ahead. Their helmets turned left and right in nervous jerks as they tried to interpret the unfamiliar protocols. The stormtroopers were too focused on correcting their formation to notice me lagging behind. A trooper barked, "Oh, straighten that line. Helmets forward." Their attention was on the humans, not the one defective clone in cracked armor blending into their periphery. I used the distraction to slip right into a shadowed side corridor lined with maintenance doors. The moment I stepped away from the group, my breathing grew loud inside the helmet, every inhale sounding like static. The hum vibrated through the walls of the corridor, faint, distant, guiding. I moved quickly, but not enough to draw attention, hugging the bulkheads, following the dim lighting strips embedded in the floor. The corridor curved, descending gently away from the docking bay. No troopers stood guard here. No officers patrolled. The path was meant for droids, not personnel. Perfect. Indeed. Far behind me, the sound of marching boots faded. Only then did I allow myself to slow. The corridor broadened into a larger maintenance section. Exposed piping lined the ceiling. Vents hissed with recycled airflow. Crates of equipment lay stacked against the walls, labeled with serial codes. I ducked behind a crate and sank to one knee. No. For the first time since fleeing the cryo wing, I allowed myself to breathe. Not because I felt safe, but because I had not collapsed yet. I lifted the cracked helmet just enough to let cold air reach my face. It burned my lungs. Sweat rolled along my jawline, dripping from my chin onto the plastered plate of my chest armor. My vision swam with the aftershock of panic. I was off Kamino. I was on an Imperial frigate. And no one knew I was alive. The hum vibrated through the deck again. Softer here, more distant. no ring distant, but it pulsed in my chest with a familiar cadence. The Empire's machinery always felt alive. Breathing, thinking, remembering. I realized with a grim clarity that this frigate was just another version of the Kamino facility. Different shape. Nanda Miwa de Del, Bar Siwintrabe. Different sky. Same hunger. A system built to strip away identity and replace it with obedience. And I was not supposed to exist inside it. I lowered the helmet back over my skull, locking it in place with a soft click. I needed to find a way to stay invisible. To survive inside a ship designed to catalog everything. To avoid every scanner, every officer, every checkpoint. That meant understanding the layout, finding blind spots, learning the routines, hiding where the Empire was not looking. My first instinct was to access a maintenance console nearby, but clones like me did not get training in slicing. We were not meant to touch command interfaces unless told. Still, I approached the console, fingers hesitating above the keys. Before I could act, heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Troopers. I ducked behind a crate again, breath halting. The footsteps passed off. 2 troopers patrolling on an automated schedule. Their conversation was minimal. One mentioned supply shortages. Why? The other mentioned a rumor about conscription, spikes on several outer rim worlds. Then they were gone. The hum resumed its quiet rhythm. On cue. I stood again, mind racing. I did not belong to the Empire anymore. But the galaxy outside this ship did not know I existed either. I was caught between 2 void saw. The one behind me that tried to dissolve me, and the one ahead that did not yet understand what I was. In that moment, the faintest awareness settled into my thoughts. If I wanted a life, I would need to carve one out of the cracks of an empire built on crushing anything that did not fit. I had escaped death only to enter a place where existence itself was a form of defiance. The hum pulsed again, and I moved deeper into the belly of the frigate, not knowing what waited, only knowing I had to stay alive long enough to find a future the Empire never meant me to reach. The deeper I moved into the frigate, the more the air changed. The sterile chill of the docking bay gave way to the dry heat of the engineering decks. Pipes ran like arteries along the ceiling, pulsing faintly with thermal flux. The hum grew louder again, echoing along the narrow metal corridors as if the entire ship were speaking in vibrations. The frigate was alive in its own way, a cold industrial organism, one that did not care if a single defective cell slipped unnoticed into its bloodstream. I found a narrow stairwell and descended. My boots clanged softly against the steps, the sound swallowed quickly by the massive ventilation shafts that roared below. Hot air rushed upward, carrying the scent of fuel, scorched metal, and coolant. My cracked helmet fogged again, trapping heat inside. I lifted the visor a sliver, breathing recycled air that tasted faintly of copper. The stairwell opened into a long walkway suspended above a cavernous engine chamber. Blue-white energy arced through the reactor core below, flickering like lightning trapped in metal coffins. The sound was deafening. Even through the helmet, the crackle of power made my bones quiver. I had never seen a ship engine before. Clones were not taught starship engineering. We were ferried inside transports without explanation. Cargo, not crew. Says morale. But standing here, above the heart of a frigate, I felt something unfamiliar. Freedom was not a place. It was not even a direction. It was the smallest pocket of space the Empire had not yet claimed. This walkway, this shadowed corner above the reactor It was mine for a moment. A sanctuary carved from machinery? But sanctuaries don't keep you alive. They only delay the hunt. I moved on, following the walkway deeper, until I found a maintenance alcove filled with forgotten equipment, coil wrenches, plasma cutters, droid parts stacked haphazardly. A vibroblade handle lay near a scrap bin, its power cell depleted. I lifted it, feeling the weight in my palm. A defective clone with a malfunctioning blade. That felt fitting, but a weapon, no matter how unreliable, was better than bare hands. I clipped the handle to my belt and stepped out again. Footsteps echoed somewhere above me. Calm, measured, authoritative. Officers. Death. Their voices drifted through the metal latticework, muffled but distinct. Ion transition. Phase will require more time than anticipated. What? The recruits, failure rate is unacceptable. Clones are being phased out, not replaced by inferiors. Emperor demands uniformity. Not competence. The words lingered like smoke. Uniformity. Not competence. So the Empire was not shaping a better army. It was shaping a controllable one. Humans followed out of fear, not programming. They could be broken down, reformed, indoctrinated, but never matched to the perfection clones were bred for. And yet, the Empire preferred them. Because perfection thinks. Perfection questions. Perfection remembers its origins. Human recruits were blank slates. I slipped away before their footsteps reached the stairwell. The hum guided me again, deeper, until I found a cluster of rooms marked with simple labels. A high storage unit. COR. Utter spare parts. D. Ario Yilirari power. Das wine. Kirby. Oration supply. The last Dora oration supply slid open with a tired hiss when I pressed the manual pad. Inside, the room was dim, lit only by a few overhead panels flickering in and out. Crates lined the walls, labeled with nutritional content and expiration dates. To my shock, the room was empty of personnel. I entered and shut the door behind me. The stillness wrapped around me like a blanket of static. Privacy. A pocket of air where no footsteps echoed, where no scanners hummed to life. I unfastened the helmet and pulled it off, letting cool air hit my face fully for the first time since the shuttle liftoff. I exhaled, long and uneven. The walls felt like they were pressing in, but not crushing off, just reminding me that reality still existed outside the armor. My reflection in a ration crate Han's polished edge hardly resembled anything the Empire wanted. A too thin clone with uneven bone structure, eyes slightly misaligned, a faint tremor in the jaw. I could suppress. My hair had grown longer than regulations allowed. My skin was pale from years without sunlight. A defective soldier trying to pose as one of their future enforcers. I sat on a crate, armor clattering softly, and let the quiet seep into me. For a momenta. Just a momenta. I allowed my thoughts to slow. The purge yard escaped. The cryo chamber. The perfect clone suspended in frozen breath. Vajra's words echoing like a death sentence across the facility. All of it pulsed inside my skull like a second heartbeat. The hum returned down, soft now, a distant vibration filtering through the deck plates. I closed my eyes, listening. It was not Kamino's hum anymore. It was the Frigator's engine resonance. Similar cadence, different source. but it sounded the same to me. It always did, almost like it followed me because I carried it with me. Then, faintly, the door panel clicked. Someone outside. My eyes snapped open. I shoved the helmet back on, sealing it just as the door slid open. A supply officer stepped in, carrying a datapad and muttering under his breath. He stopped. Model entry. His eyes flicked to Mia, a lone silent trooper sitting on a ration crate in a sealed storage room. "Ah, trooper, ah," he said sharply. "Ah, why are you not with your unit?" Ah, the cracked armor, the mismatched plates, the lack of unit markings. Ah, he noticed everything. My heartbeat spiked. The hum surged in my ears. I lowered my head just slightly and replied with the one thing clones learned perfectly: obedience. "Our order to secure the ration room, sir," I said, voice steady but muted through the damaged helmet. "Our purge cycle contamination protocol die." Ah. The officer blinked, thrown off for a moment. All contamination? There was none. I cut him off with the crisp, unwavering tone clones used when reciting directives. "Our report, 91B. Verified by engineering oversight. Designation, containment priority." Ah. The officer hesitated. His fingers tightened around his datapad. Then he stepped back. "I was not informed at," he muttered, annoyed but uncertain. "Away, check with command." The door slid shut behind him. "I'm away." Silence returned. I sat there motionless, breath shaking inside the helmet. It had worked. Ow! Not because I was convincing, but because he wanted to avoid responsibility if there was a contamination warning somewhere in the system. Fear ruled everyone here, even officers, especially officers. And fear, I realized, was a terrain I could navigate. I stood, adjusted the helmet, and peered around the storage room one last time. This place would not stay safe. They would eventually confirm the protocol did not exist. They would check the logs. Mugni. They would notice I did not belong. I needed a new hiding place. A moving one. Somewhere no one looked closely. My eyes drifted toward the far corner, where a large crate, marked for transport to the lower decks, sat sealed but not yet locked. A perfect hiding spot. I approached it, pulling the lid slightly. Enough room for a man to curl inside. Enough ventilation to breathe. Enough shadows to disappear. My path was not heroic. It was not noble. It was not even courage. I am Kiwayumstainer. It was survival. The Empire had never intended me to learn. I slipped inside the crate, pulled the lid shut from within, and let the darkness engulf me. The hum carried through the walls, agina. Steady, relentless. I was not being hunted yet. But the search would come, and by the time it did, I intended to be a ghost the Empire was not prepared to face. The darkness inside the crate was not total. A thin sliver of light leaked in through a ventilation slit near the corner, tracing a pale, trembling line across my gauntlet. Every breath I drew inside the cramped space sounded louder than its shotva, echoing off the plastud, rebounding against the rough interior walls. I curled my limbs close, armor scraping against the crate with each movement. The mismatched plates pressed against my ribs and thighs, forcing my body into angles nature never intended. Pain sparked along my spine, spreading outward in tiny electric pulses. My joints shuddered with their usual defect-born tremors. It did not matter. Pain meant I was still here. Pain meant I had not been liquefied or frozen or purged. The hum passed through the Kratos floor, a deep vibration that thrummed up into my knees like a phantom heartbeat. Outside, muffled footsteps echoed our boots, striking durasteel, voices exchanging clipped commands. A droid whirred, metallic limbs clattering as it approached the cargo stack. Then, the crate jolted upward. A lift. Why? A cargo droid was moving me. I held my breath as the crate tilted slightly, weight shifting. Something slid inside Anne. Another crate pressed too closely. When the tilt corrected, the hum behind the walls grew louder. The droid was carrying me toward a new part of the ship. Somewhere deeper, the ride felt endless. Every vibration traveled through my armor. Every clank in the droid's joints sounded like an alarm. And every second offered another moment where someone might notice one crate weighed too much, or rattled strangely, or simply did not belong. After several long minutes, the crate hit the deck with a dull thud. The droid rolled away. Silence followed. Moo. Not complete silence. The hum was there. The ship's mechanical heartbeat. Air circulators. Distant footsteps. But immediate danger? None. No. I waited anyway. 1 minute. Time due. 2. 3 DI. Clones learned patience by necessity. We spent years waiting to be tested, to be evaluated, to be judged. This was no different. The only difference now was that the judgment, if it found me, would kill me immediately. Finally, when it felt safe enough, I pushed gently on the crate lid. It did not budge. The droid had stacked other crates on top. I pressed harder. Plastic creaked. Wood protested. My armor dug into the sharp corner of the crate. Still, nothing. I pushed again, harder this time. A subtle scraping sound whispered above. One crate shifting a fraction of a centimeter. The lid loosened by the smallest margin. I shoved once more, using every ounce of strength my defective muscles could produce. The lid popped open. Light spilled in. Cold air flooded the crate, biting my exposed chin where the helmet did not seal perfectly. I emerged slowly, pushing the lid aside until I could squeeze through the gap. When I finally stood, joints cracking softly inside my armor, the room around me came into view. I was not in a high-traffic hold or a guarded deck. I was in the waste processing sublevel. Rows of crates lined the wall saw. Empty ration containers, broken droid parts, defective equipment waiting to be scrapped. Along the far wall, a giant incineration chute loomed like a yawning mechanical mouth, dripping molten residue that hissed when it hit the cold floor. Heat radiated from it. The smell stinged the inside of my helmet. And the hum reverberated through the entire space hollow, pulsing, steady. I stepped away quickly. Anything that got too close to that chute ceased to exist, which made this the perfect place for the frigate to hide anything imperfect. Including Mia. If I was not careful, a maintenance ladder led up to a narrow walkway above the incinerators. From there, bundles of cables stretched like metallic vines toward an overhead access port. A worker-saw path, not patrolled by troopers. I climbed. The ladder shook slightly under my weight, bolts rattling. My grip faltered. One saw defective motor control sending a tremor through my wrista. But I held on. Slowly, rung by rung, I reached the walkway and pressed myself against the railing. From up here, the waste processing sublevel looked like a forgotten organ inside the frigate. A place no officer bothered to check. A place they sent droids to work until they broke, then tossed into the same incinerator they fed. A place built for ghosts. Fitting. I scanned the chamber for cameras. Too much movement could draw attention, even here. but the corners were covered only with old, flickering maintenance sensors pointed toward the machinery, not the walkways. An access panel near the ceiling blinked slowly, indicating minimal system activity. I approached and opened it gently. The panel swung outward with a soft metallic groan, revealing a narrow tunnel filled with thick bundles of cables. Warm air drifted through it, carrying the faint scent of coolant and insulation. It was tight, but navigable. I crawled inside, dragging the cracked armor against the walls. The plastic squeaked with each inch forward. One. The hum intensified. The closer I got to the Shipaw's major conduits, the more the vibration became part of me. It filled my ears, my chest, my skull. After several meters, the tunnel opened onto a crouching space above a row of ventilation ducts. From here I could see through slitted grates into the deck below on. A corridor where officers occasionally passed, their gestures sharp and impatient. A distribution hub, the backbone of ship logistics. Crawling above it, unseen, I realized something profound. The Empire controlled everything, except the spaces it forgot existed. And those spaces belonged to me now. I moved slowly along the ventilation channel, keeping my head low. The hum continued its relentless rhythm, a mechanical mantra I could not escape. It had been with me since the tank. It would likely follow me until death. But in this moment it felt like guidance. Eventually, the channel split off, one path leading toward the upper barracks, the other toward life support. Life support was dangerous. Officers monitored it. Sensors tracked atmospheric anomalies. But the barracks, that was perfect. Troopers came and went constantly. Armor was everywhere. Noise, masked noise. Mistakes went unnoticed if the floor was crowded enough. If I could reach the barracks, I could blend. I could hide. I could claim a bunk of a trooper who was transferred, punished, or missing in action. And no one would know I was not supposed to be there. The Empire did not see individuals behind helmets. It saw units. Numbers, 1. Uniform shapes. Well, for the first time in my existence, that anonymity was not a prison. It was a weapon. I crawled toward the barracks route, helmet brushing wires overhead, armor scraping the metal floor. Every inch forward was painful. But pain was survival. Pain was movement. Pain was proof I was still here. After what felt like an eternity, the ventilation duct widened into a grate overlooking the barracks floor. Rows of bunks. Rows of lockers. Rows of identical troopers, moving with mechanical precision. Perfect soldiers. Nanu. Pow. And then on? An empty bunk. Locker slightly ajar. Nanu. Bed untouched. A recently transferred trooper. Or a recently dead one. A replacement. Slot in the Empire. Machinery. A place for a ghost to slip in. The hum vibrated stronger, resonating through the barracks floor. It did not feel like machinery anymore. It felt like fate. I lowered my head, breathed once, and whispered inside the helmet. I can survive here. Me. Not as clone. Not as reject. Not as failure. As something the Empire could not quantify. And with that, I reached for the grate. The grate vibrated faintly beneath my fingers as I loosened the screws with trembling precision. One by one, each metal fastener dropped into my palm with a soft tick, nearly lost beneath the Shipaw's drone. I slid the grate aside, letting the warm air from the barracks rise into the narrow crawlspace. The scent hit me immediately. Ionized armor polish, disinfectant, sweat, and the faint aroma of synthetic ration bars being opened somewhere out of sight. Normal. White. Predictable. Repetitive. A place where no one looked too closely at anyone else. Exactly what I needed. When the timing felt right, when troopers marched in formation out through the far corridor, lowered myself through the opening. The drop was not far, but my joints protested as I landed, armor clacking loudly enough to make my heart seize. I froze for a full 3 seconds, listening. On. A trooper turned his head slightly, visor reflecting the ceiling light. But he kept walking. Perfect. Done. I moved quickly toward the empty bunk, keeping my posture rigid and purposeful. Uncertainty drew attention. Confidence blended into the background noise of the Empire's machinery. The mismatched armor was still a risk, but in this chaotic transitional phase, clones being phased out, humans being phased in, our equipment errors were common. Nothing drew suspicion faster than acting like you didn't belong. I sat on the edge of the bunk with mechanical composure, mimicking the posture I'd seen perfect clones adopt. Back, straight, balloon, hands resting on thighs, helmet, forward, die. Inside the helmet, my breath rasped too loudly. I forced it to slow, to mimic theirs. A group of troopers, possibly human, based on their uneven stride, passed me without hesitation. Their voices filtered through the helmet as faint audio static. Transfer orders just came through. On. Yes. It true the purge started on Kamino? Heard they were clearing entire wings, Ion Vader was there. Means something big is moving, chai. Does not matter. We follow orders. Like always. Nigel. My muscles tensed involuntarily. They knew. Not the details, but the event. Word was spreading through whisper systems faster than official channels could contain. Kamino was being sterilized. Not metaphorically. Literally. Nines. My brothers in the cryopods saw. The malformed? One saw. The near successes, the almost hools, the ones who could not stand, could not breathe outside fluid up. They were gone already. I felt something crack quietly under the armor, something deeper than bone. A small, jagged fracture inside the part of me that still cared. But emotion was a liability here. Even grief had to be hidden beneath plastid. I opened the locker beside the bunk. Inside, worry, rendition, wards. A neatly folded, fresh undersuit. Polished armor plates. A clean helmet with no cracks. An ID chip clipped to the inside panel. My cracked irregular armor reflected faintly in the polished metal. This was an opportunity. Or a trap. The line between the two was always thin. I reached for the ID chip first. Designation stamped on it. TK 4213. Human. .1. Recently transferred off a training vessel. Assigned to this frigate's security detail. It fit the timeline. It fit the vacancy. It fit the empty bunk. It fit me if no one thought too hard about it. I stared at the pristine helmet in the locker. Its visor gleamed, flawless and cold. Stormtrooper designer. Sleek, intimidating, faceless. Not clone armor. They. Not Kaminoan design. Imperial. With this helmet, I could vanish entirely. But the cracked helmet on my head, the one that had carried me through ducks, through shadows, through near-death cough, felt like part of me. A reminder of what I had survived and what I was running from. Still, survival required shedding skin. I lifted the new helmet. It was heavier, smoother. The interior smelled like fresh polymer and sterilized foam padding. It did not squeak when I squeezed it. It did not scrape when I slid my fingers along the frame. Perfect. I removed the cracked helmet slowly. Cool air rushed past my face again, stinging my cheeks. My reflection in the armora, its inner gloss caught me off guard. Tired eyes, pale skin, a slight asymmetry in the jawline, a micro tremor near my left eyelid, a catalog of defects. I put the new helmet on. The seal formed flawlessly around my neck. Air circulated smoothly. My breaths no longer echoed like static. Instead, I heard a soft, rhythmic pulse, the helmet's internal systems sensing with the frigate's communications grid. A small display flickered to life across my visor. Beam ID verified. TK 4213. Assignment: Aft Security Sector 3. Status: active. The system did not question my biology. It did not analyze my DNA. It did not scan my face. It only verified the chip I had held between two imperfect fingers. I stood, armor adjusting around me as if recognizing a new shape. The troopers around me did not flinch as I stepped into the flow of movement. I was not a clone anymore. Not to them. Not to the system. Not to the Empire. I was a stormtrooper. A lie. A ghost. A defective being wearing the shell of the Empire's future. And for the first time, no one could see the difference. As the room flowed with purposeful chaos, troopers preparing for drills, officers barking orders, droids scuttling with equipment, I felt something dangerous flicker in my chest. A strange, quiet power. Not strength. Ow. Not confidence. Something smaller, sharper, colder. The power of being unseen, untracked, unmeasured. Moo. The power of slipping between the gears of a machine too massive to notice one broken bolt. The hum rose through the barracks floor, vibrating in perfect rhythm with the system I had just infiltrated. And as I stepped toward the exit with the other troopers, one thought pulsed in the back of my mind. The Empire believed perfection made it strong, but imperfection ghosts shadows were harder to kill. And I was all three now. The corridor outside the barracks thrummed with cold efficiency. Troopers marched in formation, their boots striking durasteel in a perfect cadence. Officers strode past them, with hands clasped behind their backs, issuing terse commands that snapped through the air like electrical discharges. The hum of the ship, constant, deep, metallica, vibrated through the soles of my boots and up into my bones, reminding me with each step that I was now part of a machine that didn't know I existed. I blended into the flow of armored bodies, moving in the same rigid, forward-facing posture as the rest. The new helmet filtered the sounds into a muted, manageable mix of comms chatter, deep engine resonance, the occasional hiss of a pressure door sealing somewhere in the distance. The cracked helmet had amplified my breath into static. This one hit it completely. TK 4213. A designation that was not mine. A life I had not lived. But the Empire did not care who wore the armor, only that the armor moved the way it expected. I moved with them. We turned down a broad passageway marked with large numerals stenciled onto the walls. Sector 3 was ahead of me assigned location, according to the helmet's internal display. Troopers peeled off in small groups toward various checkpoints, and I followed a pair of them to maintain the illusion of belonging. They did not speak. True. Troopers rarely did, unless questioning was required. Silence was the safest default in the Empire. The corridor narrowed as it approached the sector boundary. A security gate stood ahead, flanked by two black armored sentinels whose helmets resembled insecta, angular, glossy, alien dacha. They held rifles angled across their chests, perfectly still. Their breathing was audible. Their presence was absolute. I looked at the ground as I walked past them, just as the troopers ahead of me did. My helmet transmitted my forged identity, and neither sentinel reacted. No questions. No suspicion. Just a cold hallway leading deeper into the ship. The sector beyond the gate felt different. Heavier. Older. Less polished. Panels along the walls flickered. Pipes protruded from bulkheads where they shouldn't. This sector had not been updated in years. It was a place officers rarely visited unless necessary. Place used by troopers and crew working thankless jobs that kept the frigate functioning. Perfect for a ghost. A sergeant stood at the end of the hall, visor reflecting the overhead lights. He held a datapad and motioned us forward. Troopers filed past as he checked their assignments. No. When it was my turn, he glanced at the display. AIK 4213. A, he said flatly. Are you late? What? My stomach tightened, but the helmet kept my posture steady. No excuse, sirat. I responded, voice modulated to match the others. He barely looked at me. Your shift is auxiliary patrol. Hallway F19 through F27, rotating every hour. You are paired with TK 3137. He gestured toward another trooper standing at attention near the corner. The trooper nodded once, visor unreadable, posture perfect. The sergeant moved on. I approached TK 3137, keeping my gait measured. His armor was unblemished, his stance rigid, his presence entirely by the book. We stood in silence for a moment. Then he spoke. Are you under a transfer? No. His voice came through the helmet as a compressed, neutral tone. Yes, I replied. Our training vessel. He nodded. Our expectations on this ship are high. Officers do not tolerate deviations. The word hit me harder than it should have. Deviations. A polite term for defects. Something the Empire erased without ceremony. Follow orders. Atu, I said. He turned and gestured down the hallway. Patrol begins. Stay in formation. No. I walked beside him along the dim corridor, the hum of the frigate vibrating through the floor like a memory. TK 3137 ash movements were smooth, measured. Not clone smooth, but close. A human drilled to precision. The Empire was shaping him into a weapon, but he would never have the instinctual efficiency clones possessed. We passed several sealed doors marked with hazard symbols, then an open maintenance bay where droids whirred at repair stations. Sparks flashed as a welding arm pieced together a shattered piece of armor. Everything here felt worn. Utilitarian, dull, einsu. Functional, dal du, and d. As we walked, TK 3137 spoke again. Your armor is mismatched. Ashigao. My spine locked. He had noticed. I kept my voice level. A supply issue during transfer. Revolution. Wow. He studied me for a moment. Or maybe he only looked. With stormtrooper helmets, intent was impossible to read. I report to requisitions tomorrow, he said. Sector 3 requires uniformity. Uniformity. The Empire's favorite word. I nodded. No. Hastu. Oh, I understood. Donahue or same. Silence settled between us again as we turned another corner. The hum deepened here, deeper than anywhere else I had walked on the frigate. It reverberated in my chest, in the helmet, in the thin layer of sweat forming beneath the undersuit. TK 3137 stopped suddenly. I froze beside him. Oh. A panel ahead flickered, sparking violently. Smoke curled from a cracked conduit. A coolant line hissed as it sprayed vapor into the air. A maintenance droid lay on its side, legs twitching as it tried to reboot. Sector? Breach? I asked. No yet he replied. But if this coolant line ruptures fully, we'll lose pressure in the hallway. He approached the panel, inspecting the damage with calm efficiency. I stayed behind him, the hum intensifying. Something about it felt familiar too. Familiar. Not like machinery humming. Like the vibration of a cloning pod. And the resonance of the tanks. The sound I had grown inside, breathed inside, failed inside. My chest tightened inside the new armor. TK 3137. Oz voice snapped me back. Al-Azil. The auxiliary vent. Etaz. The panel to the left. I stepped forward, hands steady, forcing myself to move like a trained trooper on a defective clone trying to mimic confidence. I reached for the panel, opened it, and saw a simple lever meant to block the airflow. I pulled it. The hiss from the coolant line lessened. TK 3137 nodded. Good. Q. But then the hum shifted. Not the ship's hum. Not the reactor's hum. A different frequency. Footsteps. Heavy ones. Approaching. Now event. Too heavy for normal troopers. New Agatuning. Nast Mirdashi. Too heavy for officers. Men. Too heavy for anything except My breath caught. Al-Woon. TK 3137 straightened. Our inspection team. War. Shu. Radachao. But I recognized the cadence. The weight behind each step. The slow, deliberate rhythm. Vader. Do-eyed. My muscles locked beneath the armor. My heart hammered against the inside of my ribs. The hum in my skull roared, drowning out thought. TK 3137 snapped to attention, helmet turning toward the corridor. I did the same, though every nerve screamed. The footsteps grew louder, accompanied by the mechanical breathing I had heard only once before, the sound that froze entire squads into statues. The corridor lights flickered. The hum deepened into something primal. Then he appeared, black armor gleaming under the dim lights, cape trailing behind like a shadow given form. Breath echoing through the narrow hall. Vader stopped in front of us. His visor reflected both of our helmets. One perfect, one stolen. TK 3137 saluted with flawless precision. I forced myself to mimic him. Silence stretched. Moo. Vadra's breathing filled it. Slow inhale, long exhale, a rhythm older and colder than the ship around us. His gaze drifted from TK 3000 to me. He stared. Not a glance. Not a sweep. I used a stare. Long enough for my lungs to burn. I shall be. Long enough for the hum to roar in my skull. Long enough for a defective clone in stolen armor to feel naked beneath a gaze that could pierce anything. Then he spoke. Not to me. Not to TK 3137. A single sentence delivered to the shadows themselves. There is a presence on this ship that does not belong. Yeah? My blood froze. He turned and continued down the hallway, boots echoing like a closing fate. But the words stayed behind, settling into my armor like ice. He felt me. He did not see me. He did not know where I was. But he felt me. And now the hunt would begin. I don't work out here. Vadra's footsteps receded slowly, each heavy impact reverberating through the metal deck like the tolling of a distant, merciless bell. The mechanical breathing faded with agonizing slowness, each inhale a threat, each exhale a promise of inevitability. TK 3137 remained frozen in place, long after the black silhouette vanished around the far corner. So did I. We stood side by side, two white armored figures outwardly identical. One perfectly legitimate, one a ghost wearing a stolen identity and stolen breath. But Vader had felt me. Not seen, not heard, not scanned. Felt me. A defective clone, grown in a tank, never trained in the Force, never exposed to anything mystical, but somehow vibrating loudly enough in existence for a Sith Lord to sense the imbalance. TK 3137 exhaled first, the helmetos comm making the breath sound like static. Never seen him so close. I did not answer. He turned slightly, looking at me. Trooper? Are you functional? I forced my voice steady. Yes. He studied me for a moment. No. His visor reflected the dim corridor lights, unreadable. Then move, he said, returning to rigid formality. If we stand still after an inspection, officers take notice. Nah. We continued the patrol, but my legs felt like they were made of unrefined alloy. Heavy, clumsy, brittle. Every step sent a quiet tremor through my armor. I tried to match TK 3137's pace, but the Huma, always the Huma, pulsed too loudly in my skull now. It drowned out the corridor noise, the ventilation hiss, the calm static. It was as if the frigate's resonance had sensed with the panic in my blood. A presence on this ship that does not belong. His words dug their way through my thoughts like shards of glass. TK 3137 spoke as we turned the next corner. Did you feel it? What? Yeah, well, notice. That pressure. When he passed, I'm only. His voice dropped, quieter. It sounds like gravity changes. Bill vibration of the capture. I nodded. No. He took it as agreement, but he could not comprehend the truth. He felt intimidation, a conditioned response to power, authority, legend. I felt recognition. Not from Vader toward me, but from something in me toward him. A resonance, a familiarity, as if the hum inside me, the one rooted in tanks, in machinery, in Araran had, chimed in response to his presence. The corridor narrowed again, dim lights flickering above. TK 3137 checked a door panel, scanning for irregularities. I stood still, forcing my muscles to imitate discipline instead of fear. He moved on. I followed. We completed the patrol silently until we returned to the sector checkpoint. Only when the sergeant dismissed us did TK 3137 finally speak again. I'll end of shift. Debrief in 7 hours. He walked off toward the barracks without another word. I lingered. 7 hours. Enough time to hide. Enough time to disappear further into the Shipaw's veins. Ora? Enough time for Vader to close the distance between knowing something was wrong and knowing what was wrong. I needed to move. Now. The barracks were compromised. Too many eyes. Too much routine. Too many ways to be noticed in a place built to eliminate individuality. I turned down a side corridor instead, moving at a controlled pace. Troopers passed me, their movements mechanical, blind to anyone who matched their rhythm. But I did not match the rhythm. Not fully. Not perfectly. No. The tremor in my joints grew worse with every step, the close encounter triggering the defect patterns that had always betrayed me. I kept my head forward, hoping the helmet's blank visor hid what my body could not. A group of technicians rounded a corner. Aussie whined. One of them nodded politely as I passed, assuming my presence was authorized. If I spoke, if my voice wavered, if I hesitated, they would notice. I kept walking. Eventually I reached a maintenance stairwell, lit by a single flickering panel. The hum intensified here. The stairs led downward into the lower decks. I descended. The air grew thicker, warmer, filled with the scent of grease and circuitry. The Shipaw's pulse beat louder through the metal. This was where the frigate's crew rarely ventured out, where droids repaired conduits, where power lines crisscrossed through cramped spaces, where broken machinery was forgotten until needed again. A place beneath notice. A place for things that did not belong. I found a hatch, half hidden behind a stack of empty canisters. It bore no label, no lacquer, just a recessed handle used by maintenance droids. I opened it and crawled inside. The space beyond was narrow, barely wide enough for me to move on hands and knees. Pipes glowed red with heat, inches from my helmet. The hum here was overpowering, a vibration that rattled through the armor, through my ribs, through my teeth. It felt like being back in the nutrient tanka sound as a second womb, pressing against my skull. I kept crawling. The duct forked into two paths. One descended sharply toward the engine core. The other sloped upward toward vents, leading to the central spine of the ship. I took the upward path. My breath grew ragged. The armor scraped against every turn. Sweat trickled down my spine, pooling beneath the undersuit until I felt drenched inside the tight fabric. But I pushed forward, guided by something I did not understand. Fear was not the only thing driving me now. It was something else. A quiet pull. A whisper in the hum. Eventually, the duct opened into a larger chamber, not meant for crew or droids. A forgotten node inside the Shipaw's structure. Thin pipes snaked along the walls. A single flickering maintenance light cast a weak glow. A terminal stood in the corner, unused and half disassembled. And in this dusty, abandoned place, I felt invisible. For the first time since Kamino, I could breathe without feeling watched. I removed the helmet, letting the stale hot air touch my skin. My hair clung to my forehead, damp with sweat. My hands trembled uncontrollably, not from exhaustion, but from the echo of Vedra's presence still reverberating through my bones. A presence that does not belong. He had not meant a stowaway. He had meant me. Not for what I had done. Not for what I had stolen. But for what I was. Something defective. Something unbalanced. Something wrong in the Forza. Not strong, not trained, but anomalous enough to disturb his perception. I pressed my back against the wall and closed my eyes, letting the hum swallow me. For the first time, a terrifying thought rose in my mind. I was not just a defective clone. I was something the Empire could not categorize. Something Kamino could not stabilize. Something Vader could feel without seeing. And that made me more dangerous to the Empire than any lightsaber or blaster. Not because I was stronger, but because I existed where I should not. A glitch in the dark. A ghost inside the walls. A life the Empire did not plan for. Did not predict. Did not control. And now that ghost sat in the hidden heart of a warship, waiting. Breathing. Thinking. Becoming. I stayed in that cramped, forgotten chamber long enough for the tremors in my hands to dull into a slow, persistent ache. The huma vibrated around me in layered pulses. In the nutrient tanks, that sound had been my first lullaby. In the training halls, it had been the rhythm beneath every drill, every failure. On Kamino, it carried through walls like a reminder of everything I was not. And now, hidden in the frigate's nervous system, it followed me still. A constant presence, a familiar companion, a signal that I was still alive. When my breathing finally steadied, I opened my eyes and scanned the chamber more carefully. It was a room designed for human presence. The metal deck was uneven, patched haphazardly. Cables hung low enough that I had to duck beneath them. Whoa! The air smelled faintly of lubricant and ozone. But there was space, just enough space to exist without being seen. A ghost could not ask for more. At the far side of the room, the half-dismantled terminal flickered, as though waking in response to my presence. A single dim line of green text scrolled across the cracked display before vanishing again. Old. Way. Forgotten. Now, ye see, you're why. Unmaintained. But still alive. I approached it slowly, careful not to trip on a stray coil. The hum of the ship resonated through the metal frame beneath my palms when I touched the terminal. It felt warm, alive in a way machines shouldn't be. The console sputtered to life again. For a moment, it was nothing but static. Then, fragments of data flickered. Access restricted. Maint died. Node 4C. Link error. Subroutine suspended. It was not useful. Not yet. But it confirmed my suspicion. No, I was deep enough in the ship that even Imperial officers rarely came here. That made it a sanctuary. And sanctuaries, no matter how temporary, were where ghosts learn to breathe. I pulled the helmet off entirely and set it beside me. My skin tingled in the warm air. I tilted my head back until it rested against the cold metal wall. My eyelids felt heavy. Every bone in my body seemed to weigh twice as much as before. But I couldn't sleep. Not now. Now. Not with Vedra's words still echoing through the corridors of my mind. There is a presence on this ship that does not belong. He had not turned, had not pointed, had not ordered a sweep, die, because he did not need to. The Sith dealt with reality differently. They did not track footsteps or biometrics, They tracked imbalance, and nothing in this galaxy was more unbalanced than a clone who was not meant to live. I forced myself upright again, pulling the helmet close. The visor reflected my face, eyes too sharp with fear, skin too pale with exhaustion. A stranger, wearing a stranger's armor. I hated the reflection, not because it was flawed, but because it was real. A knock of metal echoed down the duct outside the chamber. A hatch swinging open. A footstep landing softly. A breath, light, careful, human. Someone was climbing into the maintenance tunnel. My heart lurched. I grabbed the helmet and slid it on, sealing it quickly. The world narrowed, sound dampened, breathing sensed with the internal filter. I crouched low, body coiled, ready to lunge deeper into the shadows behind the terminal if needed. Another footstep. The narrow metallic clang of someone stepping onto the ladder I climbed earlier. Then another. Slow. Searching. I'm worried away. Not a patrol. Not a droid. Someone alone. Reaching the top. Row. A shadow shifted. Behind the grate I'd crawled through. A hand appeared gloved, white gripping the frame. Then, another hand. Then, a helmet emerged. TK 3137. He pulled himself into the chamber with quiet, assured movements. He stood fully and scanned the space. His visor turned toward me. I froze. He took a slow step forward. The hum vibrated through the metal deck between us, amplifying the moment. Are you not in the barracks? He said. His voice echoed through my helmet's audio receptors. I checked the roster. He continued. ARC 4213. Never arrived for debrief. Oh. The lie I had slipped past the system had lasted less than a day. My fingers drifted toward the vibra-blade hilt on my hip. Not to Etika, just to feel something solid, something real. TK 3137 os. Visor tiltatano, quite suspicion, more like curiosity. Are you avoiding command? He asked. His tone was not confrontational. If anything, it held a trace of concern. I swallowed hard. When I spoke, my voice emerged steady but low. I needed solitude. Me? No. He stared at me, visor unreadable. But something in his posture shifted, just slightly. I understand. He said. The words did not match anything in Imperial protocol. Humans were not trained to empathize with their squad mates. They were trained to obey, to follow, to enforce. I did not respond. TK 3137 stepped further inside, examining the forgotten terminal, the dust, the wires. He ran a glove over the console. It left a clean line in the grime. No one comes here, he said quietly. I did not move. He turned back toward me. Why did Vader look at you? The question hit harder than any blaster bolt. I did not answer. He stepped closer, stopping just 2 arm lengths away. A trooper, he said, voice low. Ahoy if there is something wrong with you, My breath caught. My muscles locked. Was this it? Was this where the lie collapsed? Was this where I died on a forgotten deck, not at the hands of the Empire's most feared enforcer, but under the gaze of a trooper who saw too much? TK 3000 137 continued. You need to tell me. I stared at him through the visor. Silence filled the space between us. Heavy, mountains, dense, impossible. Finally, I spoke. I do not belong here. The words left me like a confession torn from bone. Now, TK 3137 did not react immediately. He did not reach for a weapon. He did not call for backup. He did not step back. He simply asked, what are you? I opened my mouth, but no answer came. Clone? Reject? Ghost? None of those words meant anything here. But before I could speak again, the chamber lights flickered. Then the hum changed, deepened, shifted, became colder. A presence washed through the metal, through the vents, through the walls. A pressure, not physical, not audible, but real. TK 3137 felt it too. He straightened instinctively. The air tightened. The oxygen thinned. The shadows grew heavier. Vader was moving through the ship again. Closer. You're shy. Like the frigate itself was pointing him toward us. TK 3137 turned toward the tunnel entrance. I stayed frozen. The hum roared. Something in the dark was coming. And the question in the room, what are you? Was about to matter more than either of us were prepared to face. The hum did not just vibrate anymore. It pressed. It curled around the edges of the chamber like a living thing, forcing itself between the wires, the pipes, the panels, settling under my skin with a cold, needling insistence. TK 3137 stiffened beside me. Helmet turning fractionally toward the maintenance duct, Hyde climbed through. He felt it too. Some primal alert in the nervous system, some instinctual recognition of a predator drawing near. But for him, it was only fear. For me, it was something deeper. Like the air was remembering me. Like the ship itself was exhaling a buried piece of my existence. Vader was approaching. New? Not fast. One to you. Not rushed. But inevitable. I could hear him through the shiphouse. Bonsa. His footsteps a gravitational event, each one bending the metal around it, deforming the air. The mechanical breathing arrived first, faint and cold, like a distant storm sucking the warmth out of the atmosphere. TK 3137 whispered through his helmet, voice barely audible. Hey, Lentumasand. What is it? I did not answer. You? I could not. The pressure on my mind had grown too heavy, too familiar. The same sensation Iod felt on Kamino's lower decks, the same sharp spike when Hyde walked past me in the corridor. A resonance, a recognition, a wrongness. A defective clone was not meant to disturb a Sith Lord. Yet, something in me did, and Vader was closing in to isolate the dissonance. I felt TK 3137 step between me and the duct, as if trying to shield me, though he didn't yet understand why. It was instinct. Humans still possessed instincts, fragile, clumsy, misguided, but sometimes noble in spite of their conditioning. Trooper, he said, turning his helmet toward me again. If they done something unauthorized, tell me now. The question was absurd. The truth was impossible, and the reality was lethal. Outside the chamber, Vader's footsteps grew louder, slow, measured. Metal against metal. Breath. Silence. Breath again. No, we see me do. The entire frigate seemed to inhale with him. I stepped backward instinctively, bumping into the cold wall. The terminal flickered, as if reacting to my nerves. TK 3137 saw the fear I tried to hide, even behind the visor. "Are you, shaking out," he said. "Oh, I can be here, I whispered. His stance tightened, confused. Why not? Because looking for me. I'm too old. TK 3137 knots, breath caught hot. Small, sharp intake that even the helmet could not filter out. For you? Moo. I nodded once, a small movement. He absorbed the meaning slowly. Beginners always did when facing something beyond their training. Then he spoke again, voice lower now, edged with a strange mix of fear and resolve. Me what you are. The chamber lights dimmed. The hum spiked. Be you. Vader's presence was no longer a direction. It was everywhere. Above us. Beside us. Inside the walls. I felt the tremor in my hands worsen, not from panic, but from resonanza. Like something inside me was vibrating in answer to him. A defect, reacting to a force I did not understand. I leaned close to TK 3137, voice barely audible. I am, not TK 4213. He froze. I am, not a trooper, not Yui. His breath quickened. I am, not even supposed to be alive. Me sure the civic has to be. Me sure riding. For a moment, the words hung between Usat raw, dangerous, impossible. TK 3137 didn't move. Didn't reach for his weapon. Didn't call for backup. He only asked, hey, what are you? Kande. I opened my mouth to answer but the ship halls, lights cut out. All of them. No. Instantly. The chamber plunged into total darkness. Only the hum remained, louder than before, pounding like a heartbeat under the metal floor. They gnaw. A single crimson blade ignited in the corridor beyond. The light bathed the duct, the walls, the maintenance hatch in a pulsing red glow. Shadows stretched like claws across the floor. TK 3137 sucked in a sharp breath. What? I felt my legs weaken beneath me. Vadra's silhouette filled the passageway. A walking void. A black star collapsing everything around it. The hum swallowed itself into silence. Then the breathing came. Slow, down-she, inescapable. TK 3137 reached for his blaster with shaking hands, training kicking in to replace instinct. He whispered, voice cracking. Ahoran. But there were to run. Because Vader stepped forward one slow step and spoke in a voice that vibrated through the metal itself. I can feel you. I pressed back into the wall, breath hitched, the armor trembling so violently it clattered in the darkness. TK 3137 raised his rifle, hands shaking. Homie, Lord Da. There is no unauthorized dasha. Vader didn't speak. He simply raised one gloved hand. TK 3137 ass. Rifle tore from his grip as though pulled by a hurricane. It clattered against the wall and fell uselessly at his feet. Then, TK 3137, himself lifted off the ground, feet dangling, arms spasming, a strangled gasp cracking through his helmet. Vader turned his head slightly, focusing not on the trooper he held suspended by the throat, but on the darkness where I stood. "Are there all?" he murmured. Not a shout, not an accusation. Oh, a confirmation. A hunter locating a wounded creature hiding beneath leaves. TK 3137 Oz boots kicked helplessly against the wall. His fingers clawed at the invisible grip, crushing his airway. I took a step forward before I realized what I was doing. The word escaped me. Vader paused. The pressure in the room shifted again. The air became thicker, impossible to pull into my lungs. The hum in my skull roared like an overloaded generator. "Ah, you speak," Vader said, turning fully toward me. The helmet's visor reflected my trembling form. "I do, and you true, to try. Ah, show yourself." Ah, my legs moved without conscious command. One step, no, one step, another. The light from the crimson blade washed over me as I emerged from behind the terminal. Vader released TK 3137, letting the trooper collapse to the floor in a gasping heap. Vader advanced until he stood only a few paces away. Cold. Die. Run all. Cold. Silent. No. Owl. I see ye. Immovable. The magma-red light slid across my armor, exposing every tremor, every crack, every flaw. His respirator hissed. Inhale. Exhale. A sound older than my entire existence. "I remove your helmet." "Ow," he ordered. I could not breathe, but my hands rose anyway, trembling uncontrollably. Fingers found the release. The seal broke. Mew. Cold air hit my face. The helmet slid free. I stared up at the faceless mask of the Empire Oz monster. For a long, suffocating moment, Vader said nothing. Then, in a voice barely louder than the hum, "Ah, you are not supposed to exist." Ah, the truth landed like a blade. And the hunter, for what I was not, had finally reached its end. The words hung in the air like a death sentence spoken before an executioner raises the blade. You are not supposed to exist. Vader's mask reflected my face. Pale, trembling, sweat streaked across skin that had spent its life beneath artificial lighting. My throat felt tight. My pulse hammered against the inside of my skull. Every defect in Mia, every tremor, every asymmetry, every unstable firing of miswired nervasa seemed to flare under the crimson light of his saber. TK 3137 lay on the floor behind him, coughing violently, armor scraping as his body tried to remember how to breathe. He struggled to stand, but Vader did not spare him a glance. He only watched me. That alone was enough to unmake a lifetime of conditioning. Clones were never seen. Clones were evaluated, measured, accepted or rejected. But being seen, being recognized data, be something like Hima. That felt like standing on the edge of an airlock without a tether. Vader took a slow step forward. His cape barely moved, heavy and weighted like a curtain of shadows. The hum of his lightsaber filled the air with a vibration that crawled up my spine. My breath caught. The room felt too small for him and me, and the truth we both understood. You are an echo of Vader said. A flawed reflection. Down? A remnant. His helmet tilted a fraction, The kind of movement that should not have conveyed emotion but did. Are you our failure given flesh? The words were precise but not cruel. He spoke them the way one might describe the nature of a storm or the mass of a star. A fact. Immutable. Inescapable. I felt something fracture deeper than bone. Wow. Yet, I managed to speak. I escaped. Nah. The confession tasted sharp, like biting metal. Vader stood still, utterly still, as if waiting for the galaxy to realign around the truth. Impossible, he said. I did? Shoo. The hum from his saber deepened, a low resonance that set my teeth on edge. Kaminonas, rejects do not survive on, he said. They are disposed of, reclaimed, recycled. His voice dropped lower. They do not run. My breath shuddered as I forced out the words. Ahidida, because no one thought I could. He stepped closer until the red blade was a living wound in the space between us. You are unstable, he said. Biologically compromised. Your mind is fractured. Your spine misaligned. Your neural patterns inconsistent. He listed my defects, as though reading them from a datapad. He was not guessing. No, he was not assessing. He knew. My knees almost buckled beneath the weight of it. The sabra's glow pulsed across my chest plate, turning the white armor into a bleeding shadow. White? Vader asked softly. Udo, I feel you? The question was not for TK 3137. Not for the ship. Not for the Empire. For me. And I had no answer. I lowered my eyes. No da. His breathing steadied slow, controlled, mechanical. When he spoke again, the voice was colder. Hurling will not save you. No. My jaw tightened. I am not lying. The ship groaned somewhere deep in its structure, as if the frigate itself recognized the tension gathering in this tiny forgotten room. Vader angled the lightsaber slightly. Not striking, measuring. You are not enhanced, he said. You possess no training, no connection, no purpose. His head tilted again. And yet you disturb the Force. The words hit me like a shockwave. Not channel the Force. No. Not use it. Not touch it. Disturb it. Like a stone thrown into calm water, creating ripples from the wrong shape. The wrong existence. I stared at him, unable to form a response. TK 3137 had managed to rise to one knee. He wheezed through the helmet. Ahemi Lorda, this trooper is not Vader raised a hand. TK 3137 froze mid-sentence, pinned to silence by an invisible vice. Vader didn't look at him. All clones were catalogued, he said. I indexed. Monitored from inception until expiration. His breathing deepened. Booyah. A pause. Not in the archive. Not in the archive. The hum grew louder, vibrating through my armor, up my spine, into the base of my skull. are an anomaly. Hey. The word rang through the chamber with the weight of a verdict. Anomaly. The Empire destroyed anomalies. Systems rejected them. Machines purged them. And yet I was still here. Vader circled slightly, the crimson blade casting angled shadows across the walls. You escaped your dissolution. He said. You infiltrated this vessel. You hid among my soldiers. You par. His voice sharpened. Guy. You did all this with no training. No discipline. No design. I swallowed hard. I survived. The helmet angled toward me. He said. You persisted. There was a difference. A dangerous one? He stepped closer still, until the heat of the saber brushed the air near my chest plate. What are you becoming? He asked. I felt my breath shake. I felt my heart stutter. I felt every defect inside me flare in resonance, with the dark presence standing before me. I don't know aught, I whispered. For several seconds, there was only the sound of Vadra, slow, unyielding. Then, he extinguished the saber. Darkness consumed the red glow. Silence swallowed the hum. The room fell still. Vader leaned in slightly, his voice colder than vacuum. You do not belong to the galaxy as it is. He said. He said. The words were not an execution order. Not yet. They were something worse. Recognition? Then, perhaps a pause. You may belong to the galaxy as it will be. My entire body went numb. TK 3137, still frozen, struggled to inhale through the force grip locking his throat. Vader turned his head toward him. This one, he added. Ayudo's not. He clenched his fist. TK 3137, choked Aons sharply. His body went still. His helmet hit the floor. I recoiled a step, breath crushing in my lungs. Vader moved back toward me, his presence as heavy as the ship around us. You will come with me, he said. Not a request, not an order a trooper could refuse. But something else, a claim. And as he turned toward the corridor, I followed, because I wanted but because something inside me already knew. I had just been chosen. I stepped over TK 3137 A's fallen body with the quiet, mechanical obedience the Empire had drilled into countless ranks. But inside the Armora, inside Mia, everything churned, scraping against itself in sharp, dissonant edges. I had not meant for him to die. He was not cruel. He was not unhinged. He was not an officer drunk on authority or a technician eager to dismantle a failure. He was simply there, standing near me, trying to understand. And Vader eliminated him as casually as clearing dust from a corridor. A mistake. A variable. A witness. Witness. A presence that did belong. Erased for the one that didn't. His body lay still, limbs splayed at unnatural angles, helmet visor catching the dim emergency glow flickering overhead. I forced myself not to stare. Vader didn't wait for me to mourn. He didn't acknowledge the corpse at all. He walked down the corridor with the slow, inevitable momentum of a collapsing star. I followed. Not because obedience lived in my bones. How? Not because fear locked my muscles. Not because choice had been ripped away. I followed because something in Mia, something instinctive, wrong, humming pulled me after him. And I did not know why. Vadra's stride never faltered. His cape dragged along the metal without a whisper. His breathing echoed down the hallway, filling the air with a rhythm that felt older than war. As we ascended a narrow metal stairwell, the ship seemed to shift its attention toward him. Lights steadied. Panels hummed at slightly different pitches. The very air tightened, as if the atmosphere itself feared being displaced by the man walking through it. We stepped onto a wide corridor reserved for senior officers and command personnel. The lighting was harsh here. Clean. Cold. Why? Every gleaming panel reflected a fractured version of Mia armor-clad anomaly. Trailing behind an executioner, troopers at the end of the hallway straightened to statues when they saw him. Malrel. Ah, Lord Vedera. He lifted a hand without looking at them. Silence swallowed their greeting. They stepped aside, helmets lowered, not daring to watch him pass. I walked between them, feeling their eyes slide over me without recognition. To them, I was just another stormtrooper, a faceless cell in the Imperial bloodstream. Ah, a thing, not a person. But Vader knew differently. He felt differently, and that difference was the most dangerous part. He stopped before a sealed blast door framed with obsidian trim. A door not designed for troopers, or officers, or anyone who was not draped in death and command. The door parted with a heavy hiss. Inside was a small, dim antechamber lit by a single overhead lamp that flickered softly, as though nervous. The walls were bare metal, except for a central column of instrumentation that pulsed faintly with red lights. He entered. I followed. The door sealed behind us. The room felt alive immediately. The hum here was different, tad deeper, more resonant, vibrating up through the soles of my boots and into my ribcage, as though the entire structure had been built around this specific chamber, this specific presence. No troopers waited here, no officers, no droids, just darkness, steel, and the quiet thrum of the ship's mechanical heart. Vader turned to face me fully. Without the troopers in the hall, without the corridors muffling him, without the distractions of machinery and orders, he felt larger, like the air bowed inward around him. Ah, you are not frightened, he said. His breathing punctuated the stillness. One mechanical inhale, one mechanical exhale. But he was wrong. I was terrified. Yet, fear had fused with something else, something circling beneath my skin like an electric current, something that refused to collapse even under the weight of the man before me. Hey, I'm all, I said. Your fear is a surface reaction. It does not touch your core. I didn't know what that meant. I did not want to know. I opened my mouth to speak, but words died before they formed. Vader took a single step closer. Instinct commanded me to step back, but I could not. My body ignored commands the way a broken blaster misfires, functioning in appearance, failing in purpose. Defective, he said quietly. Yet you persisted beyond your design. His helmet tilted. Why? I swallowed. My throat scraped dry inside. I did not want to die. Our survival is not reason. It is reaction. No. His voice deepened. You escaped Kamino. You avoided the dissolvers. You evaded patrols. You infiltrated a secure Imperial vessel. His tone sharpened down. Angry, not impressed, just dissecting. Ah, you have no training. Ah. He leaned in slightly. I know discipline, Tai. Ah. Another mechanical breath. I know purpose. Ah. I felt my chest tighten. I then why, clone? Ah. The way he said, Tong. Not a trooper. Ah, she. I statue wine kai. On. Not a soldier. Ah. Not a failure. Pantadir. Malbil. Ah. Clone. Die too. As if reading a memory etched into me, rather than the armor I wore. I forced the truth out, voice shaking. Ahedona. No dawn time. I did not mean to become anything. No, Davis sorry Raju Stacticon, I force Cardier. I just kept moving. Then, visual within too. The silence that followed stretched until my hands began to tremble again. You feel the force, Vader said. I flinched. Miyangums. No, He cut through the denial with a gesture so sharp it caught of sliced metal. You feel it how? He repeated. I know, with control. Da des you call. Not with clarity. Oh. He stepped close enough that the red reflections from his instrument panel danced across his armor. Ogbu, you disturb it. He said the word, like a diagnosis, not a gift, not a curse, a malfunction. A misalignment in the great machinery of the galaxy. You are an aberration, Vader continued. I know because you possess strength, but because you exist where no existence was intended. Something inside me broke hearing that. Not because of cruelty, but because of the truth in it. He knew what I was before I did. Vader turned away, cape sweeping the floor. This ship is not your place, he said. My heart lurched. But the galaxy may yet have a place for anomalies. He paused. New, nin, for useful ones. I stared at his back, breath rattling in my throat. Useful? I echoed. He did not turn. Turn. You survived Kamino. You avoided death designed for you. You resisted dissolution. A breath. You defy fate. The words struck something primal inside me. You will follow me, Vader, said Orby, because your existence demands purpose. The hum swelled around us, vibrating the chamber until my teeth buzzed. I whispered, On? If I refuse. He turned his head slightly. You wanna to tie? He moved to the exit. I didn't follow at first. I could not. My legs wouldn't move. Then, in a voice low enough to chill marrow, he added, You belong with the broken things, clone? Too. And I am the only one who understands them. My breath caught. Not because it was a threat, but because there was something terrifyingly true in it. The blast door opened. Vader walked out. I followed. You knew? Not because he commanded it. Not because the alternative was death. Not because the galaxy had left me no choice. I followed because in that moment, I understood something I had feared since the tanks. I would never escape what I was. But with Hima, I might finally learn why I existed at all. We walked in silence. Me? Not the silence of empty corridors or shut-down machinery, but the heavy gravitational quiet that collects around things too powerful to share space with ordinary life. Vader's footsteps echoed with that same slow inevitability, each one a quiet collapse of air and light. The hum of the frigate bent around him as though the ship were exhaling in submission. I followed 2 paces behind. Not beside him. Not far enough to disappear. Precisely in the orbit of someone who had decided not to kill me. The ship felt different now. Every corridor we passed through seemed sharper, colder, more awake. Troopers straightened as he approached, but none dared to look directly at him. Their helmets turned forward, bodies stiffening into statues until the black silhouette faded past. But when their visors flicked toward me, something else flickered there. Confusion. Toy. Recognition. Unease. They looked at me as though trying to place a memory they did not have. As though something in my presence did not align with the way the Force pressed against them when Vader walked by. Like my existence tugged at the edges of their perception, too subtle to name, too real to ignore. I kept my gaze locked forward. Yard. The lower decks gave way to cleaner halls, broader passages, brighter lights. The air smelled sharper here. Ionization mixed with the sting of sterilizers, the chemical signature of rooms officers visited often. Eventually, Vader stopped before a narrow door of many unmarked panels in the restricted wing. This one did not carry warning stripes or rank icons. It was just metal. Seamless. Perfect. Dash. He lifted a hand. The door opened without a hiss. Inside was a compact chamber with no windows, and only a single source of light emanating from an overhead fixture. The walls were lined with consoles, monitoring stations, and an array of diagnostic frames designed not for machines, but for analyzing the people who served them. Surveillance. An interrogation suite. Our duard style, Katamteri, QURL. My stomach tightened. Vader entered. I followed, the door sealing behind us like the closing of a vault. This room, he said, voice reverberating off the metal. Shielded. I felt it immediately. The hum changed. It still existed, because it lived in Mia, but the ambient resonance of the ship dulled, fading to a distant echo. I felt colder without it. Smaller. More exposed. You will remove your armor. He said. My breath caught. You. Oh, no. There was no tone in his voice. No threat. But refusal was a concept that could survive the space between us. I unclasped the chest plate with shaking hands. The armor felt heavier than before as I removed it piece by piece. Chest, tight. Gauntlets, shoulder plates, belt, dial, reeves. I set each piece on the floor until I stood in only the undersuit, thin fabric, stretched over a body grown to be strong yet riddled with invisible fractures. The tremor in my left hand was worse now, unmasked without the armor to constrain it. Vader stepped closer, towering over me. His respirator's mechanical cadence filled the chamber. Inhale, exhale, out. A rhythm that shook the room. I look at me, he said. I raised my eyes. His mask reflected me, small, uneven, trembling. He examined my face for a long moment. Long enough for panic to crawl up my spine. Long enough for my skin to burn under the scrutiny. Your defects, he said, are evident. I swallowed hard, unsure whether he expected a reply. Boo, your persistence is not. He circled me once, each step measured, a predator studying prey, not for consumption, but for comprehension. You carry fear, he said. Hurry, dot. Confusion. I felt my jaw tighten. Our boot beneath it is something else. Me? It's shown. I didn't ask what. He would tell me if it mattered. His hand rose. My breath locked. Not in a choker. Not yet. He hovered his gloved palm inches from my temple. Run, do. I felt pressure. Not crushing. Not invasive. Not violence. Something like the air thickening, the temperature shifting, a magnetic pull against the bones of my face. The hum inside me responded. It vibrated harder, like a tuning fork struck against metal. My vision blurred for a moment. My knees nearly buckled. Vader withdrew his hand. You are unstable in the Force. The words felt impossible. Wrong, misapplied, rad. I am not Force sensitive. It came out small, weak. You are not sensitive. Vader agreed. You are intrusive. Nuncha. Dehumanizing. Nabasher. Or CK. His head tilted. Disturb the flow. You distort the current. You disrupt the calm. I felt exposed in a way I had not known possible. You are not a wielder. He continued. You are a fracture. A tremor ran down my spine. Arya, crack in a pattern that demands symmetry. He stepped closer again. And the Force does not tolerate cracks. My throat tightened. Why am I alive? The question broke out of me before I could contain it. Vader paused. His breathing slowed. You exist, because the Force does not yet know what to do with you. He said. Neither do I. Neither do. I said you're a silter now, and neither do I. The room seemed to shrink around us. I intend he continued. I'll auto-learn. You see? He moved toward one of the diagnostic frames. Upright metal arch surrounded by sensors and stabilizers. He activated it with a gesture. The lights hummed to life. I approach. He said. I did not move. Not out of refusal, out of an overwhelming realization. He was not planning to kill me. Not yet. Not until he understood the anomaly standing before him. Not until he knew why a defective clone stirred the Force like sediment in a still pond. Vader turned his helmet toward me. You may fear what you are, he said. The galaxy will fear what you become. No. No. A shiver crawled down my back. Something inside me. That hum. That wrongness. That echo seemed to twist in response. I stepped toward the diagnostic frame. Because Vader was right about one thing. Tatooine takes you to. I did not belong in the galaxy as it was. But perhaps there was a place for me in whatever he intended to shape. I stepped into the diagnostic frame. Cold metal pressed against my spine as the stabilizers whirred to life, sliding into position around my arms, ribs, and jaw. They did not restrain me, yata. but they pinned me with the clinical precision of a dissecting tool, preparing to learn what a living subject is made of. Lights flickered along the arch. Faint pulses traced my outline. The hum inside me responded with a jittering, uneven rhythm. Vader stood before the console, one gloved hand poised over its controls. The crimson backlight cast his silhouette into something less like a man and more like an eclipse blocking out all direction. "You will not be harmed, he said. He did not say I would be safe. He did not say I would survive. Just that he was not here to break me up. Not until he understood me." He activated the frame. A vibration rippled through the metal, crawling up my spine and into the base of my skull. I clenched my jaw, breath tightening in my throat. It was not pain. Not exactly. More like someone reaching into the back of my mind with cold hands and pulling something loose. The sensors hummed louder. Vader watched the readings with a stillness that felt predatory. Lines of data flickered across the display. Waveforms, biological scans, neural output data. None of it meant anything to me, but I saw the slightest tilt of Vader's helmet as he analyzed it. He expected something. He was not getting it. The hum in the chamber thickened. I felt it pressing against the inside of my chest, like I was being filled with static. The Force, whatever that was supposed to mean, coiled around me in invisible tension. Vader stepped closer. His voice dropped to a quiet murmur. "Ahoido not resist." Before I could answer, the frame pulsed. White heat shot through my nerves. My breath caught in a silent gasp. I was not being shocked. I was being seen. Not physically, not mentally. Something deeper. A scrape of awareness passed across Mia, like the Force itself was examining a malformed shape and failing to categorize it. My knees buckled, but the stabilizers kept me upright. Vader leaned close enough that the filtered hiss of his breathing filled the space where my thoughts should have been. "Her there," he said softly. "The fracture. Iron." I swallowed, voice cracking. What do you see? What do you see?" He did not answer at first. Instead, he lifted his hand and rested his palm against the side of the frame. The diagnostic sensors pulsed again, and a ripple of cold rolled through my bloodstream. "You have no flow, Vader said. "I know, channel, DT. No unity of mind and flesh." His tone sharpened. "You do not touch the Force. You disrupt it, like a dead star collapsing into a void." The words cut deeper than any blade could. "Arya distortion, he continued. "Arya wound, that never closed." I shook my head, breath trembling. "I did not ask for this." No one asks for fate," Vader said. The frame pulsed again, harder. My vision sparked with bursts of white, and my fingers curled involuntarily. The tremor in my left hand spiked, my muscles twitching in erratic patterns. That same twitcha, that defecta, suddenly sensed with something inside the machine. For a moment, the hum aligned. A pattern? A shape. Vadra's helmet turned sharply toward the display. The entire frame went dark. All at once. 1D. The lights died. The sensors cut off. The stabilizers released. I fell forward, catching myself against the cold metal floor with trembling arms. My lungs convulsed, dragging in air too fast. Vader stepped back, observing me from above. The Force rejects classification, he said. Away cannot measure what you are. Oh. I struggled to lift my head. What am I? And he did not answer. Instead, he deactivated the entire console with a flick of his wrist. Sparks spat from one corner, then went still. You are not a mistake, he said finally. The words struck me harder than any condemnation. You are an outcome, he continued, voice lowering. Are you a result of abandonment, error, and chance? He paused. Aren't such results often reshape the galaxy? My breath hitched. He turned toward the door. You will not return to the barracks, he said. He said, you will remain unseen, unregistered, unnamed. He looked over his shoulder. You are mine now. The door opened. He stepped out. I remained kneeling on the floor, breath still shaking, body still vibrating with the aftershock of whatever the machine had tried at and failed to understand. Mine died. The word echoed in the hum. I didn't know if that meant protection, or a future far darker than anything Kamino had prepared me for. I stayed on the floor long after Vadra's presence left the chamber. His footsteps faded, his breathing dissolved into the corridors, and the last faint trace of red light vanished beneath the Doros seal. Yet he remained in the room, in the walls, in the hum trembling beneath my fingertips. Mind. The word lingered like a cold hand at the back of my neck. New. I didn't move until the tremor in my muscles subsided enough for me to stand. The undersuit clung damply to my skin. My breath rasped in my chest, uneven and strained. When I finally pushed myself upright, my legs felt numb, like I was learning how to walk again. The room around me had changed. Not physically, nothing had moved, but the way I saw it shifted. It was not an interrogation suite. It was not a diagnostic cell. It was a mirror, a place built to reveal what the Empire truly was. A machine that consumed perfection, repurposed strength, and studied even its mistakes for usefulness. I was one of those mistakes. The door slid open again. An officer stepped inside Dan's stiff posture, pristine uniform, eyes sharp with suspicion and fear. Behind him, 2 stormtroopers flanked the entrance. Their rifles were angled downward, safeties on but ready. They expected to find Vader. Instead, they found me. The officer's jaw tensed. What? I'll state your designation. The helmet lay on the floor beside the diagnostic frame. The trooper's eyes darted to Etot, then to my bare head. A clone's face. A defective one. A face that did not belong in stormtrooper armor. I didn't speak. No. The officer's grip tightened on the datapad. Your designation, trooper, Truar. Now. The hum in the room grew louder. The force anode that I understood, Eton, coiled in the air like an unseen pressure. I felt something shift inside me. Not power, not strength. Juiced on inevitability. The officer stepped closer, voice sharp. You are out of uniform. Untying the chain. Unregistered. And by appearance, you are He never finished. Warn. The lights flickered. The hum deepened, vibrating the air like a pulse. A shadow filled the doorway behind them. Vader. You. He did not enter. He did not raise a hand. He did not ignite his saber. He simply stood there. The officer's breath caught. The troopers snapped to rigid attention. Vadra's voice was low, cold, absolute. Ahue is under my authority. The officer paled. Me, Lorda. Yahi is no ta'a. Vader stepped forward once. Nine. The officer stopped breathing. You did not hear my words. Ought, Vader said. It was not a question. Apologize, my lordy. The officer stammered. You will forget this room exists. Yes, my lord. You will forget what you saw. None, well, yes, my lord. You, you will forget him. Near addition, if so, now be way. The troopers repeated the final phrase in perfect unison. Perfect unison. Yes, my lord. Vader turned his helmet toward me. A silent signal. Follow. I grabbed the discarded armor, carrying it under one arm, and stepped past the terrified officer. His eyes avoided mine completely. His fear was not for himself, no law. It was for having ever asked who I was. Vader walked ahead, and I followed, but this time not as a ghost sneaking behind him. As something claimed. Something hidden. Something being shaped. We moved through the ship's corridors without speaking. Troopers parted like water around a prow. Officers bowed their heads. The hum echoed through the hall like distant thunder. Eventually he stopped at a sealed maintenance hatch far from the barracks, far from officer's quarters, far from the paths the living used. He unlocked it with a silent gesture. Inside was a small room, bare metal, dim light, a single cot, and a wall-mounted console darkened by disuse. A cell, a bunker, a den, a place no records would acknowledge. This space is removed from ship oversight, and, Vader said, will be yours. Amor, assure you. I stared at the cot, at the walls, at the emptiness. A room with no windows, no marking, no name. A place for things the Empire did not want to see, but did not want to discard. My voice emerged small. What am I to do here? Vader stepped aside, letting me enter fully. I observe, he said. I frowned beneath the helmet I carried. I'll observe. What? He paused. Ahoy to galaxy, Vader answered. Do. Ahoyas, it becomes something new. I don't understand. You will learn. You will listen. You will listen. You will remain invisible. Now, his breathing filled the room. Now, we'll see you. And when the time comes, he added, you will serve. Nation me will. Pastor Nasham akra. Nayaduma. I swallowed. I serve what? The red glow from his chest panel flickered across the floor. Our purpose, Vader said. He turned to leave. And if I do not have one? I asked quietly. He stopped. You will, he said. Because I will give you one. Ah, the door sealed. His presence faded. The hum returned on. Steady, quiet, familiar, dark-derwanity. I sat on the cot, armor in a pile beside me, hands trembling in the half-dark. For the first time, I was not running. I was not hiding. I was not waiting to die. I was becoming something. Not a clone. My seal. Not a trooper. Not an anomaly the Empire wanted erased. Something else. Me. Something unplanned. Something the Force itself could not categorize. A fracture. A disruption. A quiet shadow growing in the darkest corner of the Empire's greatest warship. You. And though I could not see the shape of what I would become, I felt one truth settle deep inside me. My existence no longer belonged to Kamino. Or the Vats. Nyumsu. Sikru. Milray. Nyolrigabashi. Izashuptibda. Or the Dissolvers. Or the Trash Chutes. Milsides. Or the Barracks. Or the Archives. It belonged to a future Vader had not yet spoken into words. And when that future arrived, I would be ready. The room became my world. Days were not marked by light. There were no windows. Time passed in the rhythm of the frigate's engines, the droning cycle of ventilation, the mechanical heartbeat that echoed through the metal like a pulse older than the war. The cot creaked when I shifted. The walls stayed bare. The console remained dark, unless I touched it. Meals arrived without knock or voice. Silent packages left outside the hatch by troopers who never saw my face and never asked my name. Their fear was not of me. It was of the authority guarding my existence. Vader came and went without pattern. Sometimes he entered the room, only long enough to look at me. Sometimes he questioned me. Oh, what I remembered. What I felt when the hum deepened. What I dreamed, defective clones dreamed at all. I did not know how to answer most of it. But he listened anyway. And every time he left, the air felt heavier, as if the ship itself had learned something about me it was not sure how to store. Eventually, he brought me tasks. Not missions. Not orders. Observations. Encrypted fragments of intercepted transmissions. Sensor recordings from distant conflicts. I'm a near. Surveillance feeds from planets I had never heard of. Holos of rebels, officers, bounty hunters, civilians. He asked me what I noticed. Never what I thought. Never what I wanted. Just what I saw. No. A defective clone was not supposed to analyze patterns. Was not supposed to see the imperfections in a soldier's gait, or the tension in an officer's jaw, or the tremor in a rebel's hand when they spoke about freedom. But I saw everything. I saw too much. Because I had been born from error, shaped by imbalance, sharpened by hiding in the cracks between perfection and destruction. I could see fractures where others saw symmetry. Vader never praised. Never acknowledged. Never encouraged. He only listened, and returned with more. In silence, in darkness, in the hum, my mind shifted. Not into strength, not into power, into clarity. A defective mind learns how to survive by seeing what others do not. Weeks passed, then months, and eventually, one day that neither felt distinct nor special. Vader arrived and entered the room with no hesitation, no analysis, no preamble. His breathing filled the chamber. He stood before me. You have learned, he said. I did not answer. I did not need to. He took another step closer. A galaxy is changing. Oh, he said. And there will be cracks in the order we create. His helmet reflected my face. Still thin, still flawed, still trembling at the edges. But something in my eyes was different now. Not confidence, not purpose, awareness. You will go where I cannot, Vader said. My chest tightened. You will see what others overlook. He paused. You will recognize instability before it becomes rebellion. My breath caught. You will remain unseen, unnamed, unacknowledged. His voice lowered to a quiet, resonant truth. No, you will be my shadow. The hum vibrated in the walls, in my bones, in the faint defect-driven tremor that never left my fingers. Shadow. Not trooper. Not clone. Not reject. Something else. The kind of thing the galaxy does not notice until it is too late. You exist because you were not meant to. Vader said. And that makes you useful. I swallowed hard. If I refuse? I whispered. The question was not defiance. It was fear. Vader leaned closer. There is nowhere in this galaxy where you belong. He said. Except in the places no one else can go. His hand rested on my shoulder. Not gently, not cruelly, just firmly enough to anchor me in place. You will follow the cracks, he said. You will find the fractures. And you will see the weak points before they grow. I felt the quiet, ancient, intimatas, settle into rhythm with my heartbeat. And when the time comes, Vader said, you will act. Namne. He turned to leave. Before he reached the door, I spoke. What am I now? Vader paused. He did not turn around. You are? He said. The beginning. The door sealed, and I sat alone in the dim room, the hum steady beneath me, the armor at my feet, the shadows settling comfortably around my shape. Once, a defective clone. Once an error. Once a presence that did not belong. The Empire's unseen edge. The fracture that watches the galaxy for more fractures. A ghost grown from the Tanka's hum, walking quietly behind the darkest figure in history. Not perfect enough, but perfect for the shadows.